Before we dive into the full adventure, here's the quick story setup. Picture a boy whose whole life revolves around gaming and Discord. He has zero social skills, but then he suddenly wakes up in another world. Not only that, but he's already married to the Demon Queen. Unfortunately for them, she loses her powers and her kingdom. But this world is incredible though. Beyond swords and sorcery, you can literally create anything from your thought, as long as you have a magic stone and the right knowledge. This is our hero's chance to take back the demon kingdom that was stolen from his wife. But first, they have to go on a big adventure across this amazing, diverse universe. Right now, we're in this totally empty, rough area. Suddenly, a giant monster shows up, shaking the ground just by walking. This thing is part of the enchanted race. It has a malleable body, and it's classified as a dangerous B-level threat. It's yelling for some reason. Then, someone shows up behind it, scaring the monster. A blue-haired guy charges in, building up power in his fist. He uses his ancient fist ability, hitting the monster with an explosive blast punch. He figured its soft skin would just absorb the impact. He was wrong. The monster gets super mad and floats into the air, ready to strike back. The guy gets nervous, thinking he can only defend himself now. He closes his eyes, thinking he's about to be finished. But then, he hears sharp, cutting noises. He opens his eyes and sees a purple-haired girl has saved him by slicing the monster into pieces. She tells him seriously to get away right now. Relieved he's not toast, the boy thanks her for the save. The huge creature is confused about what just happened, but apparently, it can fix itself up. Frustrated, the boy asks if nothing works against this creature. Then, someone with a magic spear appears. He suggests they stop using physical attacks since they don't seem to have any effect. The boy looks back and says it's time, and it's been a while. The girl gives him a sharp look and tells him to be quiet. The boy finishes setting up a magic circle and gets ready for his attack, calling it Empowerment of the God. Using the new layering chain ability, magical chains start coming out of the circle, wrapping around the monster's arms and legs. The creature screams, furious about being completely tied up. In the back, the mage activates his power, sending lightning through the golden chains, turning everything into a massive electric conductor. A huge amount of electricity hits the monster all at once. It looks like the creature is going to be incinerated, but it stays alive, though still tied up and totally worn out. It somehow gets enough strength to break free, then collapses, completely exhausted. It looks like it ate a lot of creatures in the area, and for some reason it seems much more dangerous than just a B-level threat. The mage tells them they need to pull back because they are too late. He says the monster is actually about to give birth. A strange thing starts coming out of the monster's inside. This is the demonic fetal of consummation, a parasitic S-level threat. The newborn monster turns its head toward the heroes, clearly focused on their group. Even though it's new, it starts using some kind of power, launching a strong, massive beam from its head. The beam is full of spooky, screaming faces. This power is so strong it wrecks several rocky mountains nearby. The blue-haired boy nervously comments that the whole area is always getting messed up, but he quickly notices something in the sky above them. The demonic fetal also senses something strange. In front of the moon, you can see another demonic monster. The mage warns his companions to stay behind him, saying something scary is approaching. The fetal also looks surprised and confused. This new monster is in the sky, looking a lot like medieval armor. It starts building up some kind of purple power that looks like antimatter but shaped like a cross. It quickly shoots this dark beam at the demonic fetal's beam. It's so powerful that it obliterates the fetal's beam, hitting the monster's head straight on. After the impact, a ton of dust rises because the area is so dry. You can see a huge crater created just by that one attack. The mage managed to create an advanced shield to keep his friends safe. They ask what is going on and say this is a big issue, especially since no one warned them before launching those powerful attacks. However, it's clear the new demon used its power to stop the other demon's attack for good. The demon woman, who used up energy from a magic stone to come, steps out of the dust. She says finishing fetal was easy, like crushing a bug. She adds that they needed the queen to show up at a time like this anyway. She then says her mind has been a mess since she came to this world. She asks if the chosen one who saved the world is really that weak. Walking closer to the boy, she comments that it seems there's a lot to teach him, and that only then will he truly become the king of the realm. The boy feels awkward and nervous. He thinks that somehow, after coming to this world, he ended up as the ruler of these lands, and that she is his wife. This is Isabella, the queen of the demon tribe, with an immeasurable danger level. He explains that the Shu Luo region has several tribes, but two are the strongest, the human tribe and the demon tribe. These two had a big conflict a few centuries ago over natural resources. Both sides were exhausted, and the human tribe was the first to ask for a ceasefire. Soon after, the demon queen, Isabella Osar herself, agreed to sign the peace treaty. Meanwhile, back on Earth, a boy is playing an online multiplayer game, kind of like League of Legends. He wins in the end. Others say that's why he's the #1 player in the region, getting another 5-point combo. Someone else comments that he's great even when he's not trying his hardest. The boy sips his juice box and says that if he hadn't been ambushed in the middle once, it would have been a perfect game. His name is Xiang Ye. His parents have been working far away for years, so he has no friends and has been stuck at home all summer. He only does two things all day: draw or play games. He thought his whole summer would be like this until it ended. He never imagined he'd become the savior of another world. Closing his eyes, he thinks about how tired he is and that he'll play more after a nap. He slowly starts to open his eyes and asks when his ceiling started looking like this. Suddenly, he sees a woman staring at him. Frightened, he asks who she is and why she's in his house. Irritated, she calls him an idiot and warns him that this is not his house. Confused, he just listens to her. After looking around properly, he asks where this place is, wondering if he's losing it after playing for so long. He slaps his face to wake up, thinking he's hallucinating, but comments that everything feels too real to be a dream. Then he starts looking at the other people and their clothes. Worried, he wonders if he's in a different universe. The demon woman asks the priest if the boy is really the one from the prophecy. The older person replies that the legends say the one who wears the magic ring, which is similar to the queen's, is indeed the chosen one. Staring at her, the boy asks what magic ring she's talking about. Grabbing the ring from his necklace, a golden ring with a ruby-like jewel, he asks if she's interested in this thing. Still a bit annoyed, she explains that's exactly the magic ring they mean, showing him she has an identical one. Pulling him by the coat, she angrily asks why he doesn't have even a drop of magic, since he's the chosen one. She states that he's also part of the human tribe. Nervously, he says he doesn't understand anything she's saying and that he actually bought the ring from a street vendor. In shock, the woman asks if he really bought it. Loudly, she asks the priest if the summoning spell worked correctly. Pointing at the boy, she asks how she ended up calling a useless human like him. The priestess, not showing much faith in the boy, says the summoning spell was done correctly and that he is the one who will save the demon tribe from being wiped out. Annoyed, the boy asks them to explain what's going on and who they are. Isabella tells him to listen carefully, calling him human trash. She explains that she is the seventh descendant of the demon tribe, Isabella Osa. She signed the peace treaty between demons and humans. However, no one expected High Commander Lillian and the humans to make a secret agreement. They all teamed up and attacked the demon queen when she was unprepared. To this day, no one knows what kind of magic Lillian used, but she managed to take a lot of magic from the queen. However, the queen had 4 guards who gave their lives to protect her. She says the only reason she's alive is because of her guards' sacrifice, and that only a few people here would have the power to protect her. Thoughtfully, the main character starts to realize this is one of those stories where he's sent to another world and has to save a woman in trouble. Excited, he wonders if he's the hero, and if he'll end up with a demon queen like her in the end. After his daydream, he asks the woman if he can hide somewhere, like in a mountain. Irritated, she asks if he thinks those deceitful humans would just let her go. Others from the tribe arrive, shouting that they were followed earlier, which is why they are now surrounded. They explain that the queen was relying on the chosen one as her last option, but they had no idea he was a foolish person. Suddenly, the queen feels pain, and her companion asks if she's okay. In shock, Isabella says she can feel her power slowly going away. Then, something starts happening to her body. All her energy and dark aura begin to fade in the room. Her purple hand is slowly turning into the shape of a normal human hand. The scales on her legs are also disappearing, replaced by the legs of a normal woman her age. Seeing all this, the priest and her subordinates are also shocked. The boy himself is surprised, not understanding what's going on, and jokingly comments that even smaller, they are still huge. Nervously, the girl starts to understand. Looking at her arms, she asks why her body is changing like this. Seeing how different she looks, the priestess says it's probably because the queen's aura was lessened, and that must be why her body changed this way. Embarrassed, the queen wonders how she will face her people looking like this. One of the subordinate, in shock, comments that the queen lost her aura because of them. Pointing at the human, she says it's all the fault of this useless person and urges her sisters to finish him off. Caught off guard, he explains that he's the one in a bad spot and that he didn't even want to be summoned to this world. Opening the door, one of the men explains that the human tribe is about to break through their defenses. Badly hurt, he asks that Her Majesty be taken out of this place. As she gets dressed, she says it was quick, and her subordinate says they will protect her with everything they have. Smiling, Isabella says she's very lucky to have devoted warriors like them. Walking toward her queen, the high priestess says she looks like a normal human now, which will make her escape easier. But she warns her to be careful not to let the humans discover who she really is. She says she will stay behind to help the guards hold them off, helping her escape. Irritated, the queen refuses, saying no matter the situation, she won't abandon her people. Ignoring the priestess, she starts using some kind of magic. A magic circle begins to appear on the floor, getting the attention of the queen and her subordinate. Everyone is in the magic circle, including Isabella, her subordinates, and the protagonist, who is standing there scared in just his underwear. Nervous, the queen tries to stop her high priestess while her subordinate holds her arm, telling her not to go right now. Outside the circle, the hero thinks that when the human tribe invades, he will ask them to send him back. Seeing that he escaped, the two subordinates say they need to find the boy and that he can't get away. Gasping and sweating nervously, he begs them to leave him alone. The old woman comments that she has been helping the leaders for 5 generations and that this will be the last time, gently asking for the chance to be helpful to her queen one more time. Crying, the queen and Isabella try to stop her, but she ends up being teleported away in the end. After that, the high priestess is silent. Suddenly, the palace is broken into, the door is busted down, and dust rises as people approach. Looking back, the old woman starts to smile. A bearded, red-haired man stands with his guards, his arms crossed. This is Torst Angus, who asks where the queen is now. In response, the old woman only smiles silently. Now, in a far-off place that looks like a forest, a blue light appears, and suddenly, a group of warriors shows up, having been teleported by the old woman. The warriors seem surprised, while the girl looks unhappy. They then wonder if the human tribe is still surrounding them. Suddenly, they see the castle where they had just been. The one with the green hawk comments that it's not too far and they need to move quickly, while the blonde tells her queen to gather her thoughts. Determined, the woman says not to worry because her queen won't be sad right now. With a look of getting back at someone, she says she will get even for all the soldiers who sacrificed themselves for her, telling them to move fast. Meanwhile, a man watches them from a cliff. Everyone is smiling, and one of them comments that they will finally find the remaining troops of the demon tribe. The group is walking slowly to leave this area. Suddenly, an arrow appears, and looking back, the queen realizes the danger. The arrow quickly goes into the shoulder of one of the warriors. Someone says it's a human arrow, while the protagonist yells that she's losing a lot of liquid. One of them tells Her Majesty to go first, and they will handle this. The men rush at the group, and one of them comments that the king promised them 20 gold pieces for every demon follower they bring back. The woman, who is hurting, says these humans are awful. Looking at the boy, she asks him to promise he will protect the queen, saying this is her last request. Nervously, the boy says to leave it to him. He quickly grabs Isabella's wrist. Angry, she tells him to let go because she will fight with her troops. Arguing, the boy says she will just end up harming herself that way and should get away with him. Irritated, she explains that she would rather be finished than abandon her troops by herself. Xiang yells at her to snap out of it. He says if she goes back to fight, the soldiers who protected her will have given up their lives for nothing. He insists she can only get justice for them if she stays alive. If she dies, she can't do anything. She looks back at the fight, where she sees one of her warriors being completely defeated. Another warrior is being tied up, and the human soldier asks if he can have some fun with her before ending the conflict. Seeing this awful situation, the queen starts to cry in distress, but she listens to Xiang and decides to keep going. Suddenly, a human soldier appears, grinning nastily. Both the boy and Isabella are shocked. They are totally surrounded by enemy soldiers now. One soldier comments that they are just humans, and another says their clothes look odd, so they must be demon slaves. One of them wonders if they should finish them or not. Without hesitation, Isabella pulls away from Xiang's hand and runs toward one of the soldiers, yelling out of anger and calling them beasts. She goes to punch the surprised soldier with her bare hands. He quickly grabs her, commenting that she got really worked up seeing people of her own kind. Hearing this, one of the soldiers is surprised, saying he heard the demon tribe brainwashes their human slaves to see their own race as enemies. The first soldier smiles like he's lost it, saying that means both of them are basically demon soldiers, and wonders if their heads are worth a reward. Drawing his sword, he says he doesn't care about the reward. If they are connected to the demon tribe, they deserve to be finished. Nervously, Xiang wonders if this guy is actually going to hurt people from his own race. He starts forcing the queen's head down into a bow, which she doesn't understand. As he makes her bow in respect, he tells the man that he misunderstood everything. He explains that the demons didn't brainwash them. He says the girl has been mistreated by the demon tribe since she was very young, causing her a lot of emotional distress. Smiling, he explains that they were threatened by the demon tribe for a long time, and kindly asks them to let the two of them go. With a fiery look in her eyes, Isabella says he's making royalty kneel, and she will absolutely make him pay. Whispering, Xiang tells her to stop talking about respect when she can't even get away from him right now. Sweating nervously, he begs her to calm down because they need to escape alive. He concludes that she can only get back at her people's enemies if she survives. Returning to the conversation with the soldier, the boy says her trauma is so bad that she truly believes she is a queen. Ignoring all this, the man says he doesn't care about what they went through, only if their heads are worth any money. Shocked by this ridiculous statement, the boy is speechless. The man remarks that there are only 2 humans and wonders how they can share the reward among the 3 soldiers. Another soldier replies that the first one who strikes gets everything. Desperate, Xiang asks them one more time to let the 2 of them go. Completely ignoring his pleas, the soldier prepares to strike him. In the distance, someone on a horse yells at him to stop. Turning around to see who it is, the man starts to get nervous, realizing who it is. Terrified, he says if they find out they weren't on the main battle lines, they will be punished. Another soldier argues that they aren't part of the same squad, saying they are from the White Dragon squad. The White Dragon Knight quickly approaches. The unlucky soldier stutters, saying they are part of the Red squad, and asks if they all came to help. However, the White Dragon Knight says he heard everything they said and orders them to leave and find their leader. He says he won't tell anyone and will pretend he didn't see anything. The soldier tries to argue, saying he is the leader of the White squad and that he knows his squad doesn't have as much power as the Red squad. Suddenly, the long-haired man pulls out his sword. He says the soldier should know he is the leader of this squad and has no one telling him what to do. He says it doesn't matter which squad he's in, he has permission to deal with everyone. Staring at the sword tip, the soldier is terrified and says he understands, and they will all leave right away. After that, they all start leaving, totally ignoring the people they were just threatening. In shock, Xiang whispers that all the soldiers are gone, but now the stronger ones have shown up. The White Dragon Knight immediately gets off his horse and introduces himself as Sophisus, the leader of the White Dragon Knights. Curious, he asks when they were captured by the demon tribe and turned into slaves. Awkward but relieved, the boy laughs, saying if he had arrived 1 second later, he might have been finished. Suddenly, the sword comes close to his head. Ignoring him, the leader tells the boy to just answer his question, warning that if he doesn't respond, he will lose his life right now. Hearing this, the boy is very upset and scared. Isabella interrupts, saying if he wants to hurt them, he should just do it and stop making threats. In the background, the boy mutters that she can't keep her mouth shut. Thinking that he could end up finished if he answers incorrectly, the boy explains that it wasn't long ago, maybe when he was 5 or 6 years old, but he doesn't remember exactly. This response surprises the leader a lot. He quickly asks another question, what were their jobs in the demon tribe at that time? Zhang replies that he was just a kitchen helper, while in his mind he wonders what kind of job he could have had since he spent his whole life just playing game. Continuing his story, he points to the girl and says she is his wife, and that she was also enslaved by the demon tribe, just like him. After hearing all the explanations, Sophisa says he understands. Nervously laughing, the boy wonders if the knight actually believed him. With his hand on his sword, Sophisis asks why the boy is walking around without many clothes. Caught by surprise and totally shocked, the boy thinks it's because he was the queen's servant, which is why he has no clothes, and he wonders how he could be seen this way. The leader begins to take off his white cloak. Xiang realizes something is about to happen. The man suddenly places his cloak on the hero, saying the demon tribe probably took his clothes because he tried to escape several times. The boy questions why this guy seems so genuinely kind, showing compassion. The leader says they have both been treated badly for too long, and asks them to follow him to take them home. Stuttering with anger, Isabella asks where he plans to take the governor of the demon tribe. Meanwhile, the boy next to her whispers for her to keep quiet. In the background, another knight appears, calling his lord. He explains that both the Red Dragon and Black Dragon squads have already pulled back their forces and asked for his orders. The man comments that it seems he's late for the gathering, and in the background the two are having a conflict. The queen warns that if he does anything else, the moody one will make his life a bad dream. Desperate, Xiang gently asks her to keep his status hidden, saying the only thing they can do for now is obey, and the last thing he wants is for his identity to be revealed. Very annoyed, the girl explains that returning to the human tribe with these people will make it impossible for her to go back to the demon plains. Frustrated, the boy explains that she's being foolish. If she's found out and finished, she can forget about going anywhere at all. He emphasizes that she must not reveal who she is under any circumstances. Sophisis comments that if his help isn't needed, he should be able to go home soon, asking them to come with him right now. Excited, the group cheers for the White Dragon Knights. Sometime later, the knights arrive at the kingdom on horseback, with Xiang and his wife. The hero is impressed, asking if this is where the human tribe lives and commenting that the walls are really tall. Irritated, she asks if he really needs to hold on so tightly. Nervously, the boy explains that it's his first time on a horse, so he's a bit scared. This is the capital, located in the south of the main island, where all 4 seasons are present and there are plenty of resources, making it a very comfortable place to live. The tall walls that the hero mentioned are the iris walls, which are full of cannons, providing strong defense. In addition to the cannons, these same walls are also protected by powerful mages. After passing through the walls, the knights begin to enter the city. Xiang starts to look around, thinking the humans dress completely differently from the demon tribe. Everyone bows whenever they meet a knight, showing that this is truly a respected place. Sophisis calls the boy, who quickly answers nervously. He thinks that he can't let him find out Isabella's true identity. The man comments that their names are quite strange and asks if a demon gave them those names. Smiling, the boy says yes, while in his mind he thinks his father actually named him. The leader asks if they don't remember their real names, but the hero explains that he has no recollection since being captured. Continuing his questions, Sophisis asks if he at least remembers his family. In front of him, a soldier gets his attention. Looking back, he calls for his captain, who says he sees it too. This is the royal family. Among the guards, a man smiles strangely. The leader of the White Dragons orders everyone to get off their horses and head to the royal palace. Curious, Xiang asks who that person blocking the soldier's way is, and Isabella replies that, based on his clothes, he's probably royalty. Without thinking, the hero says that he looks like an idiot to him. Nervously, one of the knights whispers for the hero Guro to stop talking like that, saying that this is Angus's first son. Surprised, the protagonist asks if this is a higher position than the leader of their group. The man then explains that it's not just that, and they can't even compare the royal family to their group, as he is Angus's second in command. Starting to explain about the kingdom, he says the current king is still young, so before the old king passed away, he asked Angus to help the new ruler govern. Also, Angus has the strongest knight in the entire kingdom, so you could say he is above everyone else. Glaring, the passionate Isabella asks what's so great about that guy, saying that if she hadn't lost her magical power, he wouldn't stand a chance against her. The soldier is shocked, asking her to stop talking such nonsense, saying they will lose their heads. Zhang says it's fine, and if she says anything else, he's going to hit her behind. Bowing, Sophisis greets His Excellency. The boy sarcastically says he thought his father had returned since the gates opened, but apparently, it was just the unimportant White Dragon group. He continues, saying he had even prepared a welcome gathering. However, the leader of the White Dragon group cuts him off, saying there's something he's not understanding. He explains that His Majesty sent his group to sign a peace treaty with the demon tribe. Then, he asks for an explanation as to why Angus went ahead of the group to the place where the treaty was supposed to be signed. The nobleman then explains that it must be because the king decided to finish the demon queen, asking if the man is questioning the king's decision, not understanding anything. Sophisis tries to explain himself. Suddenly, a man steps in, saying he was just curious to know if this was truly the king's wish, or if it was only Angus's wish in the end. Looking back, Sophisis realizes it's his father, the imperial leader called Guro Dita. Surprised, the boy comments that Lord Guro also came and asks if he shouldn't be with His Majesty and his study. Guro comments that he heard Angus had won his conflict, and that's why he came to greet him personally. Sarcastically, the boy says he probably just came to question Angus. Laughing, the old bearded man says he wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Impressed, Xiang comments that the leader of their group's father is also an important person in the empire. The soldier then explains that Master Guro is the only imperial leader of the empire and is also one of the people closest to the king. However, he and Angus have different political ideas, so both strongly believe in their own viewpoints. With her eyes closed, Isabella comments that humans are pointless because all they do is spend their days arguing and having conflict. Next to her, the hero wonders if she wasn't also betrayed by one of her own demons. A soldier prepares to sound a type of trumpet. Several soldiers from the Red Dragon group are playing this instrument to announce something. Smiling, the boy comments that the city gates were open, and this time it's definitely Angus, without his father. Not understanding anything, Shang asks why they didn't sound the trumpet when they arrived. The soldier replies that it's because they are just from the White Dragon group. Then, the gates finally open as several people bow. Isabella and the hero start to observe what's coming. When the queen realizes what's happening, she's completely shocked. A man on horseback is holding his lance with a head fixed on it. Seeing this terrifying sight, the woman goes into a daze, starting to cry. Suddenly, the boy places his hand on her shoulder, telling her not to go over there. Hearing this, she starts to shake, her fists clenched and trembling with rage. At this moment, the boy also notices something. Torst Angus is passing by the two of them. He has a serious and focused expression. Consumed by rage, Isabella declares that she will make him pay with his life force. The man stops in front of the old imperial leader, asking if Lord Guro came just to welcome him. Smiling, Guro confirms that His Excellency did a good job. Then Guro comments that he fears that, unfortunately, His Excellency will not be able to rest just yet. He continues, saying he would like both of them to go together right now to meet His Majesty. Smiling, the representative explains that he himself already wanted to report the results to His Majesty, so they should go together soon. Stuttering, the boy approaches his father, who calls him by his name, Buri, and with an angry tone, warns that if he pulls another stunt like this, he will eliminate his race. He finishes by telling him to disappear right now. Staring at him, Buri gets very nervous and says he understands. After that, the man starts to leave along with the old man. Very nervous, the protagonist tells Isabella that it looks like the guy she wants to finish is a military leader. The girl asks what he's talking about now. He explains that in his world, he used to have a military leader named Sao Sao, who acted the same way as the representative and ended up manipulating the people around him, and Sophisis became the king because of it. But he says that before anything else, they must think of a way to get her out of there. Filled with rage, the girl says he can bet his smelly behind they will get out of here later, after she makes him pay. Suddenly, one of the soldiers calls the two of them. The blonde man says that his leader is now with Master Guro heading to the palace and has given him the mission to take both of them to his home. A bit nervous, the boy accepts the idea. After some time, they arrive at the residence of the White Dragon Group's leader. Impressed, the boy comments that this mansion is huge, asking if the leader makes that much money here. The queen says he hasn't seen anything yet, calling him common. While observing a statue, he says that this thing is so big it should be in a museum instead of here. A girl appears, saying they must be her master's guest. Accompanied by two others, she introduces herself as Elena and says she is the maid of the house and that her master asked her to take care of both of them. The boy scoffs, thinking that of course a rich guy like that would have have beautiful maids. Elena smiles and says they must be hungry and tired. The hero responds that he's starving. Meanwhile, the demon queen in the background asks if he doesn't think this is weird, wondering why they are treating a mere slave so nicely. Xiang argues that if they wanted to harm them, they would have done it already, so they should just relax and see what happens. Isabella agrees that he has a point, so they continue walking, while one of the maids watches them with a very doubtful look. Inside the palace, the representative and Guro Dita are standing respectfully in front of their young king. The man thanks his highness, saying that fulfilling his wishes and sharing his responsibilities is reward enough for him, and he desires nothing more. However, the old man disagrees, saying that what Angus did was such a serious offense that it might deserve punishment. The old man comments that his highness ordered them to sign a truce with the demon queen, and the White Dragon group was even sent to represent them. Yet, Angus went ahead of everyone to deal with the demon queen. The angry old man states that this man not only damaged the king's reputation, but will also cause serious future problems. He insists there will be a major conflict if the queen, who is now missing, manages to return to the demon tribe, and this conflict between the two tribes will cause significant loss of lives in the kingdom. The king innocently says the man seems very certain about this, but he believes Angus must have had a good reason to be in such a hurry. At that moment, Angus asks his highness for permission to report everything that occurred. He explains that after both tribes signed the truce, he received a letter from Lillian, who is actually the demon queen's second in command. In this letter, she said she already had support from most of her people and would form an even stronger alliance between the two tribes if they helped remove Queen Isabella from power. He says the demon tribe has already accepted the former queen, who has been missing since the conflict, as the new queen, and that this result proves his success. He reveals that the agreement he made with Queen Lillian is clearly written in a contract, and kindly asks His Majesty to look at the document. One of the servants hands the document to the boy king, who instantly opens it to read. Just glancing at the document, he's surprised, telling Angus he did a great job for the kingdom. Perplexed, Guro asks how a person like Lillian, who seems like a betrayer, could have been crowned so easily, questioning how Queen Isabella, who has ruled the demon tribe for centuries, was deposed so fast. He insists that something is clearly not right. In response, the king tells the professor that his opinion is no longer needed at this time. He declares that he will allow Angus to have freedom to proceed with his own plans. Stuttering, the old man nervously says he understands. At this moment, the author makes a clear hint that Angus is like a treacherous figure, controlling the situation. With a blank expression, Guro says nothing more. Sometime later, inside his private bathing room, Isabella is taking a bath alone. Looking at her hand, she says that even if she returns to the demon tribe now, they will no longer recognize her as queen. She wonders if she should spend the rest of her life with these humans. In another room, Xiang is also taking his bath, happy to finally have a moment of peace. However, he cuts himself off, thinking this is not the time to unwind. He wonders how he will return to his own world soon. He questions whether he can go back using the same ring that brought him here, confirming that he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in this place because even though it was interesting at first, it all became meaningless after seeing the terrifying sight of the soldiers dealing with those warriors. Shaking his head, he says he can't test this idea at all, and since this ring seems very important, he should put it on his finger to protect himself. Suddenly, someone else enters the same bathing area. Xiang is frustrated because he can't get the ring onto his finger no matter what, and he realizes he can only put the ring on his ring finger. In the background, Sophisis calls out to him. Looking back, Xiang says his captain has returned, but when he sees the man without clothes, he is startled. With a calm and peaceful expression, the leader says nothing, just staring at him. Sophisis comments that he is here too, and since that's the case, they should take a bath together soon. Seeing this, the hero thinks he's huge. Completely in shock, he ends up agreeing. The leader is already in the water, while the boy stands aside, thinking it's all very odd. He instantly recalls Isabella's question about why they would be so nice to slaves, thinking she is right to be suspicious because this guy seems extremely suspicious. Looking at the long-haired man, he notices something, wondering if all those scars on his body are from conflict, but he asks himself if he's being naive, because they could be from something else too. Sophisis then asks if he still hasn't gotten used to this place. Startled, the boy wonders what that look meant and if he's hinting at something else. Even though he's very embarrassed, he says he's fine. The man says that's good and informs him that tomorrow he will send some people to look for their families. Curious, the boy asks the captain if he is going to help them both find their families. Confirming, the man says yes, but the information they have is not enough to conduct a thorough search. Anxious, the boy thinks that he completely made up the story, so it would be quite a surprise if they found someone. With a serious look, the leader questions the boy, asking if he truly can't remember anything about his relatives. Xiang says he got a serious head injury after being captured, and concludes that's why he doesn't remember his past well, while internally wondering if the man is able to find flaws in his story to reveal his lie. Changing the topic, Sophisis says that he has a little brother around Xiang's age who was captured by the demon tribe years ago, and he's never seen him again. Saying his name is Sophisis, he then asks if he happened to know him. Suspicious, the protagonist doesn't know whether to say yes or no to this information. Laughing, he says there were many slaves there, so it would be impossible to know who was who. Curious about the whole story, story. Sophisis asks what they do with the people they capture. The nervous hero says they were simply slaves, so they were hurt and mistreated all the time. However, he explains that he was raised in the kitchen from a young age, so he didn't know much about what happened there. But looking back at the leader, he becomes confused. The man seems a bit sad about the whole situation. Noticing this, Shang says that it seems they were being nice to him to get information about his brother. Suddenly, Sophisis says he hopes his brother is still alive so they can meet again someday. Trying to cheer the man up, the protagonist says that although being a slave is awful, the work there was really good, so he bets that Sophisis must have grown up strong and healthy. Sadly, the leader says that after the treaty was signed, he hoped to be able to ask the demons to set the human slaves free. Involved in the conversation, the hero remembers that the human tribe still attacks the demon tribe and wonders if they will still deal with the slaves after that. With his hand on his face, Sophisis comments that Angus said the demon tribe already has a new queen and that her name is Lillian. This leaves the protagonist completely shocked. He continues, saying that the two tribes have already signed a peace treaty, but there's an issue. Surprised, Shang realizes he needs to warn Isabella about this betrayer who ended up becoming a queen. The leader explains that Angus is the only person who can talk with the demon tribe right now. Then the boy says that his leader's father and Angus are not on good terms, so it will be difficult to ask for his help. The boy is right, and Sophisis confirms the story. The leader explains that his father is one of the people His Majesty trusts the most, but still, he can't push too hard since he's basically a subordinate. He then wonders why Angus would help, as he is trying to approach the enemies peacefully. Hearing all this, the hero thinks that this is a very complicated situation. In conclusion, Sophisis says that he can't let this bring him down. Xiang says the leader is a really kind person and is sure that good things will happen to him. He affirms that the leader is right to disagree with his brother. Quickly, Sophisis places his hand on the hero's shoulder, surprising him with the gesture. Grateful, the leader says thank you for all the kind words and gently asks him to stop calling him leader or captain and just call him Sophisis. A bit embarrassed and uncomfortable, the boy just agrees to the idea. As night falls in the same palace, Shang is walking down the hallway in slippers, accompanied by the maid, Elena. He thinks that Isabella was right, because Sophisis was really keeping something big secret. Finishing the walk, a maid tells Mr. Shang that this is his room. Holding the door, he thanks the young woman, who says she hopes he has a good night's sleep. After showing the guest room, she leaves the area. Embarrassed, the boy says she's wonderful, and that he only dreams of being with someone like her. Then, he opens the door and finds someone in his room. It's the demon queen Isabella, who is changing clothes at that very moment. Embarrassed with a bloody nose, he wonders what she's doing in his room now. Upon noticing the hero, she also becomes extremely embarrassed and angry. She closes the door to the room, calling the boy a fool and telling him to stop calling her by name because they are being watched. Surprised, the boy says there's no way that's true since he was just having a casual talk with Sophisis a little while ago. Annoyed, Isabella explains that she was talking about the maid and calls him an idiot, explaining that the maid has been observing them since they stepped into the mansion because in everyone's eyes, they're still slaves of the demon tribe, so they still can't fully trust either of them. Sweating, the hero says she didn't have to put them in the same room. The queen says that's his fault because he wouldn't stop repeating that they were married. Shocked, he asks if she thinks they were put in the same room to see if they're really married. Continuing her thought, the girl says that if they find out they're lying, they'll certainly think they're involved with the demon tribe. At that moment, she notices something strange, stating that there's someone outside. It's one of the maids, Elena, who is standing in front of their door, leaning her head to listen to everything closely. To fool the maid about being married, both of them start saying many suggestive things. The woman then stays awake and smiles, still standing near the room after hearing all this. Noticing this, the queen says it looks like she's already gone, while the hero continues with his suggestive remarks. Deeply irritated, Isabella says that's enough and that if he does it again, she'll eliminate him. Excited, Xiang suggests that they stop acting and move on to the actual plan. Hearing this, the queen simply stays silent. Overcome with fury, she lands a solid strike on the protagonist's head, ordering him to sleep on the floor because she's taking the bed. With a terrifying look, she warns him that she'll wipe him from existence if he dares try anything while she's asleep. Then the hero comments that she's like a powerful predator without its main weapons, and she responds that if he's brave enough, he should just try his luck. Rubbing his sore cheek, he asks what kind of person she thinks he is, confirming that he's not that kind of guy and that he's innocent. Afterward, he calls out to Isabella, asking if since she managed to summon him, she can also send him back to his world, throwing cold water on his hopes. She says she doesn't know how to cast that kind of spell and that not even the high shaman could send him back. After this response, the hero falls silent. He quickly remembers the magic ring and asks Isabella to lend him her ring for a moment. Complying with his request, she hands it over to the boy. He explains that if this ring brought him here, then it might also be able to send him back to his world. Nervously, he decides to test this idea. Clapping his hands, he repeats that he wants to be sent back. He keeps repeating this phrase while looking at the ring. 10 minutes go by, and he's still doing the same thing. Frustrated, he questions why it's not working. He wonders if the shaman cursed him after calling him here. The girl explains that the high shaman shaman read some ancient spell scrolls and that only the tribe elders can read them. Soon, the boy concludes that the only way to return to his world is by going to the territory of the monarchy. Without much hope, he begins to look at both rings. Looking back, he tells the queen to take her ring back, but he's surprised to see that she's already fallen asleep. She's sleeping very peacefully. Smiling, Xiang thinks that she's usually so aggressive and controlling, but seeing her asleep now, she looks quite sweet. Someone is watching from the top of a window. It's Sophisis, observing the sky and stars. In the background, one of the maids appears, calling him master. He asks if she was able to observe them. Blushing deeply, she confirms that she has, and that they have already finished arriving from the demon tribe. At that moment, the man turns and approaches. He quickly grabs her by the waist and pulls her close, warning her that next time she cannot disturb them without his permission. Embarrassed, she explains that she didn't know what to do because this is the first time the master has brought guests to his home. At this moment, Sophisis explains that as soon as he saw the protagonist, he felt a strange connection between them, almost as if they were from the same family. Remembering his brother Sophisis who disappeared, he states that this hero might actually be his own brother. Suddenly, Elena places her hand on his face, saying that it's been a long time since she last saw the master smile. Then he asks if she's happy for him. Without saying anything, she just smiles. Heading straight to the bed, he grabs her wrist, leaving her completely flustered in this situation. Then he asks her to stay here tonight. Very embarrassed, the maid agrees. They begin embracing at that moment. Alone in the room with only the bedside lamp on, time passes, and it's already dawn at the palace. Xiang is in a deep sleep. He soon wakes up and starts to open his eyes. He spent the entire night sleeping on the floor. Looking to the side, something catches his attention. Seeing the empty bed, he wonders where Isabella is. Outside the room, someone calls for Master Xiang. He opens the door and realizes it's the maid from the night before. Smiling, she says good morning and hands him a bundle of clothes. She explains that her master personally chose these clothes for him. Amazed, Elena says the clothes look great on the boy. Thoughtful, the hero wonders if this is how people dress in this world. Changing the subject, he asks Elena if she knows where Isabella went. She responds, explaining that she and the master are training in the garden right now. She invites him to join them later. The two are walking through the garden. Impressed, the boy thinks that this garden is unbelievably huge. He thinks that if the woman wasn't with him right now, he would have already gotten lost. From a distance, he can see Sophisis, who is apparently training with a bow and arrow. The long-haired man is very focused. Then he fires his weapon, hitting the target exactly in the center for the third time in a row. Approaching him, the hero praises him, saying he's really skilled. He says that he must have a great history with hitting things accurately to be so good, it's almost unnerving. Sophisis asks if the boy wants to try, but Xiang responds that he's fine, explaining that his aim isn't as good as theirs. Surprised, the man says that Isabella, who is actually the demon queen, is quite skilled. Nearby, Isabella is also focused on shooting her bow and arrow, hitting the target perfectly for the third time in a row. Impressed, the boy thinks that her power might be gone, but her fighting skills are clearly still there. He quickly recalls when he said she wouldn't be able to defeat them, nervously thinking he was an idiot for saying that at the time. Elena approaches the two, announcing that breakfast is ready. There's freshly brewed coffee, donuts, cake, and all sorts of good food. Holding his cup of coffee, Sophisis comments that they spent some time observing the demon tribe and asks if they are used to life here now. Laughing, the boy says everything is fine and he's already comfortable. Thinking of a way to get out of this place, Xiang comments that everyone has helped them a lot, so they can't keep being a burden. Wiping his mouth, Sophisis tells him to stop thinking that way, saying that both of them can live here if they want, and that he's already asked Elena to take care of them both. He explains that she will teach them how to live comfortably in this kingdom. Once again faking a smile, the boy wonders if Sophisis really wants them both to live there forever, starting to think about what all this means. Interrupting the conversation, Isabella explains that she just wants to live independently again, and they don't want to cause any more problems for them. Surprised, the man says it's not a problem at all. In fact, he says they just want to employ both of them in the empire because they can even find jobs for them. Either way, it would be good if they worked and lived here because he's really eager to try Xiang's cooking. Afraid, the hero thinks he's in serious trouble. Suddenly, the demon queen starts yelling, slamming her hands on the table. She says she would rather return to the demon territory than work in the kitchen for the rest of her life. Shocked, the boy whispers, asking what she's doing and telling her not to upset him. Not understanding anything, Sophisis wonders what she's talking about. The woman immediately explains that she's heard about how the human king treats people who were part of the demon tribe because the legends say that in the past, humans were constantly terrorized due to their extremely frail body. Because of all the attacks they suffered, humans decided to look for a powerful dragon to protect them. This same dragon helped build villages and cities and also taught humans how to use magic, which is how the dragon emblem that humans use today was created. The king has 7 armies, and each army has a different colored dragon emblem. The most powerful groups are the Black Dragon Army and the Red Dragon Army. The groups that protect the walls are the Purple, Green, Amber, and Gray armies. The White Dragon Army is part of the king's personal security and is only used when there's some local issue or celebration in an area. So, if a citizen wants to escape poverty, they must do their best to join one of the armies. However, there are only two ways to join an army. The first is by working hard and improving until you show your ability. The second is by earning a diploma from the Capital School of Honor. Since its creation, the School of Honor has constantly sent students to serve the king. The legends say that the school's headmaster, Vasily Andreas, is around 500 years old and has mastered all the magic of the planes, with his powers reaching a divine level. There are also rumors that if all the teachers from that school combined their power, they could eliminate hundreds of armies. She explains that this is why she wants to study at the School of Honor. It doesn't matter if they teach sword fighting or magic. Her only goal is to become powerful. Disappointed, the protagonist thinks that this must really be the only way they can get back to the demon tribe. Sophisis asks the girl if she really wants to make that choice. Without hesitating, she responds that she wants to get back at those who wronged her, and this answer completely shocks the hero. Curious, the man asks what she's talking about. In his mind, Xiang thinks they're going to be in big trouble if she says everything. Taking the lead in the conversation, he replies that yes, they want to get back at those who wronged them, because they've been mistreated by the demon tribe for a long time, and the only way for them to get rid of them is by dealing with them all after they train. Showing excitement, he shouts that they were once slaves, so by getting stronger, they will be able to save millions of people who are currently captives in their former positions. Making a dramatic pose, the man explains that in that case, he won't allow them to join that school. This scares them, and the hero asks why they can't. Sophisis explains that fighting isn't as easy as they imagine, and asks why they don't just settle down in this place until they find their family. After hearing this response, Xiang gets Sophisis's attention, saying that actually, there's another reason for all of this. The man with long hair asks what reason that would be. In response, Xiang says that apparently they are still very weak, but if they have the chance to study at this so-called School of Honor, they will be able to become stronger, or help. He says that his father and Angus are having conflicts for the good of the human tribe, and that they also want to help in some way, concluding that this is the only way they have to repay everything that has been done for them. At that moment, the boy asks how he can spout all that nonsense and still be so weak. Nervously, the boy thinks he used every word he could and hopes it solves something. In response, the man just stares at him. He quickly pats the boy on both shoulders with his hand. Leaning in, he says he didn't expect him to be worried about him. Instantly, he smiles at the boy. The boy thinks the man must be crazy to have believed everything he said. Behind them, Isabella is annoyed, explains that they are not royalty nor honored, and besides that, they're not ordinary citizens, so the only hope they have of entering the School of Honor is through him. The leader says he can enroll her in the school since she has great potential, and if she studies diligently, she will become a very valuable person to the kingdom. Turning to the hero, he says that in his case, there is still a long way to go. Thinks Sophisis has a good eye for choosing soldiers, because he can see someone's potential just by looking. Still looking at the boy, the leader explains that perhaps he has more potential in cooking. Crying, the boy thinks the man should forget about him because he's terrible in the kitchen. A while later at the gates, Sophisis explains to them that the academy's classes started 2 months ago, so they will only be able to sign up as second-round students. Xiang asks if they will go directly into the sword fighting or magic classes. The man explains that magic and sword fighting are just 2 of the 9 branches of the academy. Magic, sword fighting, hand-to-hand combat, and archery are the main branches of the academy. The man explains that they will introduce themselves to their teachers, who will guide them through the new branches. After introducing themselves, the teachers will check their strengths and weaknesses to then suggest a suitable branch. The hero comments that he still doesn't know how to do anything, and initially he thinks he's done nothing in his life except play video games and draw. The man explains that each teacher will use a different way to assess them to see which branch they'll fit into. He says that even without much knowledge, as long as you have some determination, you'll be able to pass into one of them. Then he says he'll let his soldier take both of them to their guiding teachers. At that moment, Xiang realizes that this soldier is the same assistant who helped them last time. The boy is about to call out to Sophisis, who quickly mounts his horse, asking if the man is coming with them. However, the leader explains that he needs to visit His Majesty with his father today, and if they both pass the selection test, they'll earn housing at the academy. But if they don't pass, he'll return to take them back to his house. With arms crossed, the queen thinks the boy's a miserable person, while the soldier laughs. However, the protagonist is very determined to make it all work and get into the School of Honor, and that this will actually be his first success in this world. A while later, inside the School of Honor, several students are sitting on the floor attending the lesson. An old man is going to teach them how to master the wind fist. This is the academy's hand-to-hand combat teacher named Mike Yasso. He says that before they learn the wind fist, they need to master the strength of shadows. Then he calls on his student, Eli, who introduces himself and asks him to demonstrate for the other students. He then throws a stone to the boy, telling him to hold it. Eli follows the order, holding a stone in his wrapped hand. After that, the teacher asks him to strike the statue with all his might. Obeying the order, he walks toward the stone statue, preparing to attack with all his strength. He hits the stone statue hard using only his fist, causing it to crack. It ends up completely splitting in half. Eli sighs in relief for having succeeded, while in the background everyone claps, saying that he's strong and that only Eli could do such a thing. Mike then asks the boy to open his hand. As he opens it, dust dust from the stone he was holding begins to pour out. The man explains that his attack was very powerful and ended up destroying the stone that was in his hand. He explains that those who wish to master the power of shadows will need to strike without breaking what they hold in their hand. Nervously, the boys in the audience think that this seems difficult and wonder if it's really possible. Eli asks his teacher if something like that is truly impossible. Ignoring him, the man walks over to the birdcage, picking up the little bird in his hand. Xiang wonders what the old man is doing, though not everyone can understand him. With the bird in his hand, he walks toward the stone, preparing to strike while a type of dark magic begins to form around his fist. Quickly, he decides to attack with all his might using the shadow energy. He strikes the statue, shattering it into several pieces. The impact is so strong that it creates a shockwave around everyone. The wind becomes so strong that the students have to protect themselves. A large cloud of smoke begins to rise due to the destruction of the rock. From within the smoke, a man emerges. It's the teacher, totally calm and composed, knowing exactly what he's doing. Opening his hand, he shows that the little bird is safe and unharmed. Outraged, the bird wonders what just happened. Desperately, it starts flying away to escape from there. All the students are in shock, wondering how he managed to do that. From a distance, a boy says that was incredible, getting the teacher's attention. Xiang is amazed that the man managed to shatter the statue with just one punch. The excited teacher asks what they are doing here. The student greets Professor Mike, saying it wasn't his intention to interrupt his class. He explains that these are the new students, and they brought them here to take the entrance test. In the background, the boys are amazed because one of them is a girl, saying that she's beautiful. One asks if she's going to study here, and another says he doubts it as girls usually don't sign up for this course. Mike looks at the protagonist, saying he seems to be a student, and Xiang confirms, with a serious expression, tells him to listen carefully, asking if he's really here to learn hand-to-hand combat. Suddenly, Mike activates some kind of power in his green eyes. Many people around him start to feel something strange happening. Everyone is in shock, not understanding what's going on as they tremble. The boys say he's unleashed that powerful, intense feeling again, and that fortunately, he did it at the beginning of the year. They wonder how that old man can be so powerful. After unleashing this power, the man continues to stare at everyone. However, he notices something strange and looks to the side. It's Queen Isabella, arms crossed, asking when they're going to meet the magic and sword fighting teachers. This comment makes the soldier uncomfortable, while Professor Mike calls for her attention. Smiling, he says she's going to be an excellent martial artist. With a stern face, the woman apologizes and says she's only interested in learning magic and swordsmanship. At that moment, the old man regrets this decision, but suddenly he notices the protagonist, affirming that he also seems good. In fact, the protagonist is in shock, mentally disturbed, thinking he won't be able to stand for long after that terrifying wave of power. A soldier tells the boy that he just experienced the frightening power of Master Mike. However, the boy quickly starts to fall backward. The soldier panics while Queen Isabella calls him a weakling. Sometime later that same day, the protagonist is lying on the ground with his eyes closed. Suddenly, he wakes up startled, asking what happened and wondering where everyone went. Isabella replies that they've already left, calling him trash. The next protagonist speaking tells him he was frozen by Master Mike's fearsome energy blast. Xiang says that Mike is unbelievably strong, asking how he manages to do that. The blue-eyed student explains that Mike used the fighting technique he developed and that Xiang didn't pass the test, but if he wants, he can still teach him. Laughing, the hero says he's not used to getting hurt, so he thinks it's completely fair that he failed. Meanwhile, he thinks that he's just a regular guy, and if he joined the group, he would probably pass out from exhaustion during training. But he says they can still be friends if he wants, which ends up confusing the student. Extending his hand, Xiang says that from today onwards, he will also be studying at the academy. Introducing himself, he says his name is Xiang, and that he's the first friend he's made since coming here. In his mind, he thinks that this guy is really strong, so if he keeps this up, he's going to end up being bullied. Greeting him, the student says his name is Alex Eli, and that since he's so determined to be his friend, he can also just call him Alex. He then mentions that he'll be in the combat class if Xiang needs anything. At that, Isabella comments that even though he doesn't have any ability, he manages to convince people to become friends. Irritated, the hero asks what she means by convince, as he just made a friend in a normal way, not caring much, that since they don't want to learn hand-to-hand combat, the next classes will be in sword fighting and magic. A little while later, they arrive at the outdoor training area. Several people are shouting together. It's a group of students watching a conflict. A sword comes close, but its attack is stopped by a kind of magic shield that pushes the girl with the sword backward. This is the fencing instructor, Dorona, who tells Icy not to be so aggressive. This is the magic instructor, Wadley Icy, who tells the girl not to be ridiculous, explaining that these fencing classes always take over the training field. She questions how her magic students are supposed to train. She quickly casts some kind of spell. The fencing instructor skillfully and precisely avoids everything, saying that she should have mentioned earlier that she wanted to use this place and there was no need to attack. In the background, the students cheer for their respective teachers. Among them is Buri, who says he wants to see some action already, telling her to show the amazing power of the sword fighting class. Suddenly, one of the magic class students says the sword fighting people are being ridiculous because they always try to take over the training area. Others from the same class agree, saying he's right. Meanwhile, a man who seems to be from the magic class is reading a book. Then someone approaches and asks if they can stop this because he just cleaned the whole place and now they're messing it up again. The old man just watches the conflict between the teachers while continuing to sweep the area. One of the magic instructor's spells hits Dorona's shoulder. Even though her shoulder is injured and losing some liquid, she doesn't lose her focus. With a nasty smile, she says if that's how her rival wants to play, then they'll play. Charging forward with her weapon, the two immediately engage in a full-on clash. Icy conjures a magic shield to protect herself from the sword strike. However, Dorona somehow manages to move above and behind the magic instructor. Then, a series of lightning bolts begin to run through her sword. Preparing to strike, she explains that Icy provoked her first. Looking back, the mage seems surprised. She quickly conjures a large magic shield to protect her back, while Dorona attacks with her lightning-powered magical strike. A large energy wave is created from the impact of these powerful forces. Dorona's lightning strike ends up being bounced off the shield, heading toward another spot. It's headed straight for the old janitor. It gets very, very close to the man. As he looks to the side, he notices something strange coming. Xiang, the hero, comes to rescue him. He decides to use a burst of energy to jump and save the old man from being completely wiped out by the lightning strike. After saving him, he lands on his back, feeling the pain. The magic student who was reading just observes everything, and the teachers are a bit startled by what just happened. Both Xiang and the old man are hurt from the incident. Concerned, the boy asks the old man if he's okay. He responds that he's fine and asks if the boy is okay too. Looking back, the protagonist notices something strange. Then he realizes that the wave of magic is actually burning. Completely in shock, it hits him that if he had been struck by the lightning, he would be gone right now. Suddenly, a sword gets very close to his eye, startling him. It's Dorona, who claims he's not a student at this academy, asking if he's trying to sneak into her classes. Worried, the boy wonders how she figured out he wasn't a student here. He starts to explain that she almost struck the old man who was just cleaning the yard, but when he looks to the side, he notices that the old man has disappeared, and he wonders where the guy went. Arguing, he says that the old man was right here just a moment ago. Then, someone calls for the fencing teacher. Soldier Akal arrives at the scene, gently asking her not to be so aggressive because the boy is a friend of Sophices's. Embarrassed, she is happy to see the soldier. Very excited, she asks if Sophices also came, asking where he is in a very warm way. But the soldier explained that he was busy with some tasks so he couldn't come. Irritated, she asks what he's doing here then, especially with guests. The man explains that they are newly arrived second-round students and that they haven't signed up for any branch yet. Suspicious, she asks if Sophices approved of this second-round student thing. The other instructor cuts in, asking if the director knows about it. Achelle explains that the director has already agreed to the leader's request. At that moment, the fencing teacher just watches without saying anything. Looking to the side, she notices the presence of Queen Isabella. Then she sees her noticeably prominent chest. At that moment, she feels challenged and embarrassed, deciding to look away. She quickly begins comparing her colleague Asi's figure to her own. After a few minutes pass, one of the students comments that it's that really beautiful girl. Another student responds that she seems a bit plain. Introducing everyone, Achella says the boy next to him is named Xiang. He then prepares to introduce the girl but is interrupted. Explains that since they are new, she asks to check their powers first. Confused, the boy asks what she's talking about. Suddenly, the woman thrusts her sword into the ground, asking which of the two wants to go first. Isabella stands with her arms crossed, not responding. Dorona then asks what they are waiting for. Her colleague approaches with a giant green ball. She brings her hand closer to the magical sphere, then slowly shrinks it down in size until it fits entirely in her hand. Walking toward the demon queen, she offers it, telling her to take it. Xiang approaches the blonde man, getting his attention, and asking if that magic ball can measure a person's potential. Surprised, the man asks if the boy doesn't know about threshold power. Scratching his head, the boy explains that he spent most of his life in the demon tribe. In his mind, he wonders if this is so common that even children should know about it. Achelle comments that he forgot the boy grew up in the demon tribe and says he'll explain everything properly. Starting the explanation, he says that all beings in this world have something called threshold power inside them. However, this can't be used right away. To be able to use it, one must train their body until they reach what they call the limit point. In this case, that magic ball can reveal the internal threshold power of anyone. Curious about this, the hero asks about this threshold capacity thing. In response, the soldier asks him to imagine threshold power as water and that everyone has a cup inside their bodies. However, the size of this cup varies from person to person, determining how much power each can store. He continues the explanation, saying that this cup of water is the threshold capacity, and what it holds is what we call threshold power. Both sword fighting and magic students need to have a good amount of threshold power because if their internal strength is too small, they won't be able to accomplish anything. In the demon tribe, this is called magic power, and the threshold capacity is called the magic well. Thoughtfully, Xiang understands that threshold power is the same as magic power, and threshold capacity is equivalent to the magic well. Suddenly, Isabella arrives carrying the magic ball. Smitten, the boys say she's very beautiful and suggest she join their class. Seeing this, two girls call them beasts. Continuing the explanation, Achilles says that if the ball gives off a weak glow, it means that Isabella has average power, which is enough to join the magic class. Nervously, the boy asks what will happen if the ball doesn't glow. The blonde man replies that she'll have to give up both sword and magic lessons. At the same time, Dorona thinks that Sophisis only sent this girl because of her prominent chest. With arms crossed, she says that she's taking too long and thought she might have some potential. Intervening, the magic class teacher asks her colleague to be quiet, saying that she can feel something. At that moment, a magic ball begins to give off a green light, and everyone is astonished. It's an emerald green energy radiating directly from the magic ball. Surprised, the teacher asks what is happening. Achille comments that she is impressive, and the hero is also amazed by what he's seeing. Even the academy students are nervous, saying that it's a lot of power and that it's awesome. With a serious expression, the teacher pulls the sphere back as if she had some kind of mental connection with it. With the sphere in her hands, she asks the queen if she's ever received magic lessons before. She replies that she learned some magic, but due to some events, she lost her internal strength. Analyzing her, Asi thinks that she can't sense any internal power in the girl, but she has immense capacity for it, something she hasn't seen in a very long time. Greeting her, she says that she accepts her, and from now on, she will be her magic teacher. Knowing that she's been accepted, the students start celebrating, saying that this girl has joined their class. A bit upset, Dorona asks her colleague if she doesn't want to think about her decision again. Smiling, Isi says that this girl only ranks below someone named Ren. In disbelief, Achille says that Isabella is amazing because she made the sphere almost explode with so much light, and the protagonist thinks it's obvious since she's the queen of demons, knowing that despite having lost her magical power, she still has immeasurable potential. At that moment, the fencing teacher congratulates her colleague for getting someone so special. Hearing the compliment, Isabella simply ignores it. She moves away from the two of them and walks toward the sword, placing her hand on the handle. Nervously, Achille says she's already passed her test, asking why she's doing this. Holding the sword, Isabella says she hasn't yet decided if she will study magic or sword fighting. Laughing, Dorona asks if she's thinking of participating in both magic and sword fighting classes at the same time. While holding the sword, the girl says that she has already studied sword fighting with people from the east but hasn't had many chances to try it out. At that, Achille comments to Isabella that the magic teacher was already satisfied with her. Interrupting him, the girl insists that she wants to try. In response, the fencing teacher accepts, saying they'll test her in that case. She then asks who would like to guide the newcomer. Smiling, Angus's son volunteers, telling the girl that she doesn't need to worry because he'll go easy on her. Approaching her, he says they'll see how she handles the sword. In the background, Zhang says it's time to see if she's as fierce as she claims, which leaves Achille quite confused. Mediating, the teacher makes it clear that this conflict is only a test, so the use of internal power won't be allowed, and the redhead says not to worry because he won't hurt the young girl. The hero starts calling out to Isabella, who asks what he's doing. He explains, saying she needs to be careful because that guy is a pervert, repeating that she needs to be careful, which irritates her quite a bit. Ignoring this, Dorona says they can start the conflict. Quickly, Buri leaps, wielding his sword. He charges at his opponent. He's approaching the girl, who is still standing still. However, he starts to notice her body, apparently distracted. His strike has no effect. The blow is blocked without her even meaning to move. Turning around, the boy prepares to attack again. Showing agility, he jumps over the novice. Now behind her, he tries to attack from the back. However, the queen avoids the attack effortlessly. Then the boy moves away, commenting that this girl seems to have a few hidden talents. Watching him, Isabella remains silent. Suddenly, she realizes something. Her strap has been cut, leaving her surprised. Seeing all this, the students say that Buri is really strong, and they say that's how you fight. Filled with rage, the hero says that this crowd is just a bunch of idiots pushing their luck. In front of his opponent, the boy starts laughing. Driving his sword into the ground, he approaches, smiling wildly. He aims for the girl's head, but she manages to dodge again, finding an opening for her attack. Just barely, Angus's son manages to defend himself with his sword. Both move away after the clash. Without hesitation, the Queen of Demons moves to attack. Focused, the boy prepares to defend himself. Stretching his sword to its limit, he strikes the girl's sword, but she doesn't give up and continues her assault without showing any fear. Avoiding the boy's attack without needing to turn around, she attacks with her sword. Quickly, Buri manages to turn around and defend himself once again. Moving away from the novice, his eyes widen as he realizes what's coming. With a sharp gaze, the queen moves to attack. She begins to spin clockwise, even while wearing platform shoes. Surprised, the fencing instructor begins to understand what kind of technique is being used. Spinning like a top, the girl attacks intensely with her sword, defending himself. The boy thinks he won't be able to keep up for long at this pace. With an intense stare, an electric current starts to flow through his body. This energy travels through his sword, making it stronger. Isabella is startled to see this in front of her. Confident, the boy starts laughing with an excited look, deciding to attack the novice with everything he has due to his upgrade. She manages to defend herself but begins to feel nervous. Watching the entire conflict, the protagonist becomes worried. Dominating the battle, the boy starts to smile, releasing a burst of energy toward Isabella. This power approaches the queen. Someone shouts, "Ice field!" A type of blue energy begins to emerge from the palm of their hand, forming some kind of magical shield, protecting the novice from the powerful blast. Realizing who it is, the boy starts to get nervous. This is Ren, holding the girl like a charming hero. After saving her, he lands on the ground, asking if she's alright. At that moment, the protagonist touches his shoulder, thanking him for saving his wife. Hearing this, the man becomes curious. All the students are shocked by this information, with many even feeling let down. Xiang asks his supposed wife if she's okay, and she responds that Buri's techniques are just child's play. Gossiping in the background, the fencing instructor asks Akela if they are really married, and the soldier confirms that they are. Relieved, she smiles, saying that someone should have mentioned this earlier. Then the man realizes that it's because of this instructor that Sophisis didn't want to come along on this trip. Disappointed, Dorona tells Angus's son that she had already warned him not to use his full strength. Very nervous, the boy stammers, saying he only used it to defend himself. Intervening, Aisi comments that everyone is human, but Ren is someone better than Buri, stronger than he will ever be in his life, saying that this is her apprentice named Torst Ren. She concludes that it seems Isabella has finally found someone of her level. The man says he'll do his best to get stronger and stronger. Bowing, he asks Isabella to help him on this path, and seeing this, Xiang feels somewhat uncomfortable. Dorona says it seems she's learned the techniques of Professor Mokia. The girl responds that yes, she has. Mokia is known across the kingdoms as the master of sword. Perplexed, the students realize that she trained with Mokia, and one of them says that explains why she's so strong. The instructor says she also trained with Mokia for a while, and because of that, she can say with certainty that the girl uses his techniques. With her arms crossed, the queen says she understands, but the techniques the instructor used just now were even more powerful, to which the instructor laughs and says she has a good eye. Excited, she says that from today on, the girl will be her student. In response, the students celebrate this fact, saying that their class now has beauty. A student from the magic class asks why they're celebrating when the novice hasn't even decided which class to join. Approaching, the hero comments that she's also good at attracting people, and Isabella responds that she just spoke the truth, but that the instructor isn't as good as she used to be in her complete form. However, she managed to become very strong through her own effort. Asi asks her colleague what she meant by her student because, in reality, the girl is going to the magic class. Arguing, Dorona says that she's much better with swords than with magic, and if she joins the other class, she'll end up wasting all her learning potential. The two are having a conflict. Ashale comments that it now seems to depend on Isabella's decision. However, the girl confesses that she's confused. Engaged, Asi suggests that they should settle it with a conflict, and Dorona says she's not afraid of her colleague, asking her to bring it on. Shang, completely surprised by all the drama, suddenly asked the instructors about his own test. The magic instructor looked confused. Shang, excited, said he wanted to be tested too, not really believing in him. She threw the magic ball over. Holding it, he exclaimed, "This is magic!" He was super nervous, thinking this was his big chance to gain power for world peace. A student wondered if he'd be stronger than Isabella, but another said it was tough to guess. 3 minutes went by. Someone asked what he was doing, and another student wondered why the ball wasn't glowing even a little. Everyone started whispering, which made Xiang sweat buckets. Why wasn't there any light? Buri immediately started making fun of him, saying he seemed like trash, and everyone laughed. The magic teacher took the ball back. She announced that it was clear he was worthless wood from the start and she only tested him so he could face his failure. Xiang didn't get it, so Achele explained that worthless wood was a term for people with no potential, as that kind of wood was useless even for building. Xiang nervously asked if that meant no magic or sword fighting for him. Achele was sweating, hating to give him the bad news. The magic teacher confirmed he couldn't use magic without threshold power. Dorona added that he could still learn sword fighting, but he wouldn't be able to defeat anyone who did use threshold power. Xiang felt awkward, surrounded by everyone, and wondered if there was any other way. Buri, Angus's son, jumped in, asking if the new guy was just slow. He reminded Xiang that they all called him useless wood, and that he should leave because the academy wasn't for people without brains. Xiang looked down and said he finally got it, remembering Sophisis suggesting his potential might be in cooking. With a blank expression, he figured Sophisis must have known he was worthless wood all along. Suddenly, Isabella snapped at him, demanding to know who dared call him trash. Changing his mind, Xiang smiled and reached for Isabella's waist. Holding her close, he declared that he might be useless, but his wife was there to help him. He asked the queen if he was right. Embarrassed, she immediately told him to let go. Xiang then suggested they go check out the other classes. He told Isabella to stay, study hard, and focus on either the sword or magic path. He smiled, saying she just needed to want it, and she'd get whatever she desired. desired. As they left, the two instructors kept fighting about which class the new student would join. Isabella just watched Xiang with her arms crossed. Later, as they walked through the academy, Xiang asked the soldier what he should do now since he had zero magic power. He asked if this meant he couldn't join the school. Achille explained that the results only applied to those specific branches. The important thing was finding a match. He suggested focusing on non-combat branches for now. Annoyed, Xiang wondered if he was really going to become a chef. Achille cut him off and said they'd arrived at the next branch. Xiang looked confused, asking what this one was. The soldier told him it was the forging branch. They found several students sitting and drawing a sword on clipboards in front of a stage. Xiang didn't understand why they were drawing. He thought everyone's drawings were terrible, but then he saw a green-haired student's drawing of a super crooked sword. Xiang, shocked, blurted out that it looked horrible. The student challenged him, asking what he meant. Everyone turned to look at Xiang. A student asked what branch he was from, and if he was trying to cause trouble. Xiang quickly apologized, saying he was a second-round student and was really sorry. He then asked why blacksmiths were drawing instead of hammering metal. Suddenly, someone said the boy didn't know anything. It was the blacksmithing professor, Ashtone Martin. Everyone called him Mr. Martin. The professor told the students to keep drawing. Xiang instantly felt that this professor was different. The professor explained that his entire field was about creating anything. Xiang was surprised. Achille explained that Xiang was captured by the demon tribe as a child, so he knew nothing. Laughing, the professor said he understood. He turned and offered to show them how forging was done in the human tribe. He walked onto the stage. Closing his eyes, he stood in front of the sword and pulled a specific-looking object from his pocket. It looked like a pen. It then grew larger in his hand. Xiang asked if that was magic too. The professor held the object like a sword and started drawing a common sword on the ground. Excited, he commanded it to awaken. Once the drawing was finished, it started glowing blue. Xiang was amazed as a sword began to emerge from the drawing. Seconds later, it was fully formed. The sword magically flew to the professor's hand. He asked Xiang what he thought, explaining that this was how humans created their art. Xiang was shocked, realizing the object was actually a brush. He asked if it could create absolutely anything. Coming off the stage, the professor said yes, as long as he had enough crystallized gold alloy. Xiang nervously asked if that was magic, but Martin said no, emphasizing this was a blacksmithing class. Holding the sword, Xiang wondered if they could create weapons out of nothing. He asked if the crystallized gold alloys needed magical power. Martin laughed, explaining that the crystals already contained magic, so even a child could use them. He added that the different crystal alloys were categorized, and his pen had a special crystal that let him create items from nothing. Xiang realized this was a powerful technique and asked if it required the internal boundary strength. Martin burst into laughter, saying it didn't. The green-haired student stuttered, asking what he was talking about. Everyone wondered why he kept mentioning boundary strength, saying they could forge perfectly without it. Achille whispered to Xiang to stop mentioning boundary strength because most people there were vain woods. Excited, Xiang shouted that this was awesome. He dropped to his knees, hugging the professor, begging to be accepted as a student. Martin, confused, asked if he seriously wanted to learn blacksmithing. With shining eyes, Xiang said he was also a vain wood. Everyone was surprised. Xiang then quickly drew something, creating a super realistic drawing of the fencing teacher, Dorona. A student commented on how good the drawing of the fencing teacher was, and the green-haired student, sweating, admitted Xiang was skilled. Xiang walked over to the professor, saying he was done. Martin was impressed, saying his skill was far beyond the minimum required for the class. Achille couldn't believe how talented Xiang was at drawing, and Xiang chuckled, acting modest. Changing his tone, Xiang told the professor that drawing was all he was good at. The professor replied that blacksmithing wasn't as popular as other fields, but those who excelled would find many opportunities. Xiang wondered if his drawing was a passive skill in this world. He told the professor that blacksmithing could easily compete with the other fields, saying that creating things from just a drawing was an overpowering ability. The green-haired student added that Xiang first needed to learn the rules of blacksmithing. He explained the 3 rules. First, only create things with good intentions. Second, don't steal materials. And third, only forge non-living objects. Xiang had to remember those rules. Thoughtfully, Xiang realized the teacher must be a good person given those 3 rules. Smiling, Xiang thought he was really going to enjoy studying with this man. He placed his hands on the ground, humbly asking the teacher to accept him. Achille stepped in, mentioning that Xiang was also a friend of the White Dragon Group leader, and that the leader would properly show his respect if the professor accepted. The impressed green-haired student noted that Xiang wasn't just skilled, he had good connections too. Smiling, Martin said that wasn't necessary. Placing his hands on the young man's shoulders, he said he couldn't pass up such a talented student. From today on, Xiang was one of his students. Martin showed him the crystal, aura pen, explaining that everyone in his class got one. Handing it over, he told him to take good care of it. Very happy, Xiang thought this was definitely a magical item. A little while later, in the royal palace, Angus was before the king. The king felt nervous looking at Angus. Angus got the king's attention, stating they couldn't wait any longer and kindly asked the boy to give the order. Suddenly, Sophisis and his father interrupted the conversation, dragon. The king was happy, thinking help had finally arrived. The old man spoke to His Highness, saying he heard Angus was seeking an execution order for the Minister of Agriculture and the Grey Dragon Group leader, and questioned Angus's motive. Angus explained that he sent a team to check on rumors of offensive acts inside the walls. They discovered the Minister of Agriculture was getting too close to the creatures of the eastern region, and the Grey Dragon leader was giving supplies to the enemy tribe. He concluded that mobilizing an army without permission to give supplies to the enemy deserved 100 lifetimes of severe punishment. Gorodita commented that the East was facing a serious shortage of food and water, and they were already planning to offer aid to create a peaceful connection between the tribes. He argued that continuing to give them supplies would save them in a difficult time and build a good relationship between the nations. Hearing everything, the king kept quiet. Angus kept pushing, saying the East was full of wild creatures and why they'd want peace. He stressed the worst part was that they acted without telling the king. Gorodita quickly argued that they didn't have time to report because lives were in danger, but Angus called those creatures inferior being, which made the old man furious. Gorodita appealed to the king, who looked stressed. Angus interrupted again, saying it was too late, and ordered the guards to bring in the captives. Heavy chains appeared, holding several different types of people. A man who looked like an Orochimaru character bragged that he caught them getting supplies from the army. Gorodita was shocked, recognizing one of the captives as Mokia, the master of swords, and the other as General Commander Beru. The captives respectfully greeted Angus. Gorodita was angry, asking why Angus had gone so far. Angus just smiled and told a captive to open a box. Inside was a severed head, a terrifying sight that shocked the king, Gorodita, and Sophisis. The king was horrified, asking what Angus had done. Angus calmly told His Majesty that he was too kind-hearted and should let him handle the difficult work. He announced that the leadership of the Grey Dragon Group would go to Sato, and in 1 week, Sato would lead an attack with the Black and Grey Dragon armies to wipe out the Eastern tribe forever. The two captives were stunned. Mokia questioned Angus, reminding him that he'd only wanted him and the commander, and promised to help their people. He asked what Angus was doing. The fake Orochimaru got angry and yanked the chains, hurting Mokia. Angus simply said he never promised anything, and they should beg the king for their lives. Mokia called him pitiful. Beru told Mokia to forget it, saying he warned him the human tribe was the most deceitful of all, with wicked heart. Gorodita watched, horrified that things had escalated so much. He yelled at the king to stop everything immediately to prevent a major conflict between the two groups. The king became even more nervous. Sato just laughed. He moved toward the captive's chains again. Suddenly, Mokia realized something strange. He could move, and his internal strength was returning. Sato, worried, shouted that they had broken free from the restraints and told the guards to capture them. Mokia seized the chance, yelling that they dared to start a war, and for this, the king would face the consequences of his subordinates' actions. Mokia quickly charged at the king with a magical sword. Sophisis stepped in, protecting his king, and told Mokia not to disrespect the ruler. After the clash, the monster retreated. Sophisis prepared to fight back, striking the lizard-like figure squarely. He declared that Mokia was unworthy of his title for losing to his blade. Mokia, hurt and shaking, stayed quiet. Sato asked the king if he was okay. Sophisis quickly finished the swordmaster. Seeing this terrifying scene, the king started to tremble, and Gorodita trembled with pure fury. The old man realized this had been Angus's plan all along. With a wide, victorious smile, Angus turned to leave. Meanwhile, in another part of the kingdom, Shang was walking with Achele. He saw a magical gateway and got excited, thinking they finally arrived. He commented that these gateways looked just like the ones in video games. He asked the soldier where they were headed. Achele explained that they take academy students close to their homes, as most lived far away. These gateways led to the northern residences. He mentioned the eastern residences were nicer, so they cost more, but the north was having some security issues, which made the living costs lower. Jiang quickly summed it up. The north was basically the rough area, and the east was the fancy area. Achele cut the conversation short, saying that if Shang wanted to keep studying, he had to live on campus now. Shang thought Sophisis was a nice person, but had strange looks, so he definitely didn't want to go back to that house. He told Achele he could go back and to thank Sophisis for him. Achele pulled something out of his pocket, saying the leader had already prepared everything. He gave Shang a key with a number. Curious, Shang asked what the key was for. The blonde man explained that if he didn't like living there, the leader said he could come back anytime, but if he decided to stay, Achele would help him get settled. He concluded that there was a free room in the eastern wing. Excited, Shang thought Sophisis was truly a great person. He decided that when he got back to the demon area, he would make a real effort to find Sophisis' missing brother. Speaking of Sophisis, he was walking with his father. Breaking the silence, Sophisis asked if his father thought the king would listen to them. The irritated old man said that the Minister of Agriculture and the Grey Dragon Group leader were his most reliable people, and if the king let them be removed, he would fight fiercely to prove the king wrong. They arrived arrived in front of a guarded room. One guard called for Sophisis, who asked them to hurry as Gurodita needed to speak with the king. The guard bowed and said the king knew Gurodita was coming and ordered them to wait outside. Surprised, the old man said it seemed he and the king were thinking alike. Sophisis faced a soldier, who explained that the king ordered only Mr. Gurodita to enter. Curious, Sophisis asked if that was really the king's wish. The soldier nodded. As his father headed toward the door, he asked Sophisis to wait for him there. Sophisis simply watched his father enter the room. Once inside, the old man called for his majesty, but was surprised to find no one there. He wondered where the king was. In the background, a man appeared. It was Angus. He explained that he made sure his majesty was practicing archery on horseback and wouldn't be back anytime soon. Angus then said he hoped the old man wouldn't be too shocked by what was about to happen today. Gurodita became very nervous, unsure of what to do. Later that afternoon, Sophisis was still waiting by the door, growing impatient from his father's delay. Suddenly, he noticed someone approaching from behind. With a defensive instinct, he turned to see who it was. He realized it was Sato, the fake Orochimaru. Curious, he wondered what Sato was doing here. Sato said that the leader of the White Dragon group always led his people into conflict. He smiled, commenting that Sophisis might not know the king used to command the White Dragon army directly. Sophisis countered that the group was created to protect the king, so that wasn't an issue. However, Sato explained that the king was still young, and from now on, Angus would likely be the one giving orders to the White Dragon group. Sophisis became extremely confused, but started to feel like something was wrong. He looked around and noticed the guards standing in front of him weren't reacting at all. The angry leader began to understand what was happening. He started to move, but the man beside him stopped him, saying that if he was thinking of going inside, he would be risking his life. Sophisis then asked if they were finally trying to get rid of his father. Without directly answering, Sato put his hand on his face and started smiling, laughing wildly, not bothering to hide his intentions. With a sharp look, Sophisis asked if that was really what was going on. Sato started yelling, telling the young man to relax because Angus was now fully in charge, and all of Sophasis's actions would be controlled by them from now on. The leader of the White Dragon group started to draw his sword, holding it close to Sato's neck. Sato asked why they would finish his father now. Not understanding anything, the boy asked what they were trying to do with his father. Smiling strangely, Sato explained that right now, the boy was nothing more than Gurodita's son, so he had no authority to command anyone in the kingdom. He said they needed to be realistic because the boy had the potential to be the hero he wanted to be, so why not just be happy as a mediocre leader? Angry, Sophisis said he had the nerve to threaten his father in front of him, and he shouldn't beg for kindness when he was cut down. Mockingly, Sato told the boy not to worry so much, because Angus only wanted to show his father the true state of the capital. Confused, the boy asked what he meant by that. Walking away, Sato told the leader to go home and rest, assuring him that Gurodita would be fine, but he added that if Sophisis still wanted to strike him down, he'd love to see him try right now. However, Sophisis did nothing and just watched. Time passed, and it was night in the kingdom. In the eastern residential block of the campus, the protagonist was heading toward his room. He thought the east block was indeed luxurious. This reminded him of the tiny old place he stayed at in his previous school. He inserted the key and finally opened the door. However, he was embarrassed when he noticed someone else in the room. It was Isabella wearing her sleep clothes. Disbelieving, he covered his eyes and asked why Isabella was in his room and what she was doing. He waited for a defensive hit, but surprisingly, she responded that he had seen more than this before, so there was no reason to strike him. The boy figured that Sophisis must have been the one who put him in the same room as her, and he mentally called Sophisis an angel. Sitting on the bed, she said she still didn't understand why these humans were doing this, but she admitted they were being taken care of well, as everything was prepared for them. Holding a coin, the hero asked how much it was worth, and Isabella responded it was enough to bury some supplies. The protagonist commented that since they were far from the central area, he suggested they sneak out for a bit. Isabella quickly told him not to be foolish because the academy always monitored its students and would notice if they suddenly disappeared. She added that the magic instructor mentioned that the east and north wings were always protected by a magical field. This field was like an indestructible glass wall, and even the magic teachers couldn't break it. It was built both to protect the students and to keep them within the grounds so they couldn't escape. After hearing this, Xiang asked what they should do next. Isabella explained that her powers were completely gone, so she would stay put and try to regain her strength. She explained that the demon tribe chose its leaders based only on strength, so if she couldn't recover her powers, there was no point in going back because they wouldn't accept anyone weak as a leader. Awkwardly, the hero said that sounded tough, but that she didn't need to worry because she still had him. Smiling, he said he would take her back to her tribe, defeat the traitors, and put her back on the throne. The girl was very surprised to hear this. Showing his magical pen, the boy explained that he had already found the perfect branch for him, the forging branch, and that if forging was taken seriously, it could become very powerful. After hearing this, the girl became interested. Changing the subject, the hero asked Isabella if she chose sword fighting or magic. She responded that since she wanted to get back her former strength. She chose to study both, and both teachers ended up accepting her decision. Sitting on the bed, the hero said that she was basically a magical sword master, but the girl looked confused and asked where he got that silly idea from. Explaining, said that a magical sword master is a class that uses both sword and magic in conflicts, and he asked if there wasn't anyone like that around here. Isabella said that being a magical swordswoman sounded really interesting, but she quickly noticed something strange, asking why the boy was on the bed. Smiling, he told her to relax because they needed to act like they were married for everyone else. In response, the girl just got embarrassed. Blushing, she said it was all the protagonist's fault for telling others she was his wife. Also embarrassed, he thought that she used to be aggressive and cold most of the time, and that she looked really sweet when she was embarrassed. He then explained that he did it to keep those flirty people away from her because she tended to attract a lot of attention easily. Getting up from the bed, she thanked him, and he told her to stop that since they were married. Quickly, she pointed her sword at the hero, telling him to get off the bed. Scared, the boy asked if she was really going to take out her husband. Standing up, she said that she would if he tried to sneak up on her later. A while later, the boy was sleeping on the floor. Looking at the magical pen, he thought that this thing made everything he drew become real. He wondered if there was any limit to creating objects. The sun started to rise in their room. Isabella began to wake up. Opening her eyes to some strange female shape, she became fully alert. Quickly grabbing her weapon to defend herself, she pointed it at the woman and asked who she was and what she was doing in her room. But upon looking closely, she realized it wasn't a person. Extremely confused by what she was seeing, she then realized it was actually a statue of herself. Not understanding anything, she wondered where this came from. Noticing something, she looked to her side, seeing various structures made of stone. Seeing all this, she began to get suspicious, thinking that this must be the work of that idiot. He had made everything from pets to complicated weapons. Curious, she asked what these strange things were, and assumed she must have been really tired yesterday not to hear all the noise he must have made building all of this. She then decided to leave her room. When she reached the hall, she heard several people asking what these things were, and she came across a stone sports car. Everyone was questioning what these strange objects were. Isabella was completely perplexed by all of this. Suddenly, people spotted a giant made of stone. It was huge, and they wondered who put him there. The girl also noticed the stone giant. In her mind, she understood that she would need to discipline the boy as soon as he returned. Meanwhile, at the academy, several students from the Forge class were already paying attention to their teacher, who commented that it was getting late and asked where Xiang was. The green hair guy offered to go get the student, but Martin said it wasn't necessary and that the class would start regardless. Suddenly, the boy arrived, apologizing for being late. Ringing a kind of small bell as he entered, the protagonist showed up with some sort of bicycle that he must have made himself. He passed in front of all the students in the class, who were impressed, including the teacher, who asked what that was. The curious green-haired student asked what that thing was, wondering if it was some new toy for wealthy boys. In his mind, Shang wondered how he was going to explain this to them. He replied that it was a bicycle, his new invention, also known as a pedal bike. Impressed, Martin said he'd seen vehicles powered by animals and steam energy in the dwarf tribe, but this was the first time he'd seen a vehicle that used human physical strength to move. Suddenly, some people started calling his name. Amazed by this invention, the students in his class asked if they could try it too. Giving a thumbs up, the hero said, "Of course," and told them to go ahead. Looking to the side, he noticed that his teacher had already taken the lead and hopped on the bicycle. Smiling, he apologized, saying he couldn't control himself. The green-haired student said it was no problem, they could wait. Martin then asked the hero how to use this thing. Grabbing his arm, the boy explained that first, he needed to find his balance. He continued, saying that now he should place both feet on the pedals and push forward. Struggling, the man asked him to take it easy and pedaled first with his left foot, then with his right. The man tried to do this but started to fall. Sweating a lot, he said the boy was amazing because this thing was very difficult to control. Xiang then explained that it could be a little tricky at first, but once he got the hang of it, he'd be able to control it quite easily. He taught him to apply more force and try to go faster while also being careful with balance. Then he noticed that the man was finally getting it. With great difficulty, he asked what the boy was doing there, and the boy responded for him to relax because he needed to practice alone to gain experience. Excited, the students cheered on the teacher, who, with great effort, was managing to ride the bicycle, although he was still struggling a lot to keep his balance without falling. From a distance, Martin told the boy that it seemed he'd gotten the hang of it and wouldn't stop moving. Proud, the protagonist said he learned things so quickly, saying he was proud of that boy. The students then said that this thing called a bicycle was very surprising, and that this invention might influence countless future generations. In his mind, the hero thought that when he invented the combustion engine, he'd become the most famous person in the world. However, the teacher asked how to stop this thing. Suddenly, the hero realized that he forgot to design the brakes for the bicycle. Afraid Afraid, he yelled for the teacher to stop pedaling, but the man didn't hear him and asked what he said. He crashed into a tree, scaring the birds. Wiping himself off, he apologized, saying he played too much, and it ended up this way. The shocked students thought it was totally the teacher's fault, saying such an amazing invention was now completely messed up, a total waste. Seeing how down everyone was, the teacher apologized again. Xiang calmed everyone down, saying they could relax because he could design something even better than that one. Everyone was surprised, and Martin quickly asked him to draw it. Nervously, Xiang explained he couldn't draw right now because he had used up all the energy from his crystallized gold alloy. This shocked everyone. The teacher asked if he used up all those stones in just one night. The student wearing glasses chimed in, explaining that those stones had enough power to build an entire house. However, the hero just explained he was doing some tests the night before. In his head, Xiang knew he couldn't tell them what he was actually drawing. The pen worked just by thinking about it. The features and shapes came from his own thoughts. He just needed to sketch simple shape to create anything he wanted. He wondered how much this world would change if he brought inventions from his old world here. The professor gave him a warning. He needed a really high-grade gold alloy to create bigger, more complicated things from nothing. Plus, the starter stone he had needed the same kind of basic material that the item normally used. So, the first thing he drew was a cell phone, but the phone was totally useless because he didn't know what raw materials were needed to make a functional one. After that, he tried making a television, a refrigerator, a car, and other stuff, but none of it worked because to create those things with his stone, he needed the actual raw materials. He wondered how he was going to solve this problem. After Xiang's explanation, the professor joked that he tried making all sorts of random things. The boy laughed nervously. His classmate asked what he drew. Laughing, Xiang replied that he shouldn't even ask, as all his tries were failures. Sometime later, the students arrived for blacksmithing class. Professor Martin went to a chest to grab something. He pulled out a glowing stone and put it into his magic pen. He commented that they were running low on stones. Handing it to Xiang, he told him to use it carefully. Xiang was the only one happy because now he could keep going with his tests in class. Martin said he made them all draw to become better blacksmiths. Today, he was going to teach them how to tell the different crystallized gold alloys apart and what they could do. Xiang was fascinated by this information, and his classmates pulled him to sit down. Martin then pulled out a suitcase, pressed a red button, and it popped open, showing several pens inside. Below that were various stones and other magical-looking items. It was a very complete set. The professor asked the students why they put the stones in pens instead of just using them directly to forge things. The student with glasses replied that the stone's power was too strong, making them hard to control if used straight up. Plus, he said it could seriously hurt the user. The professor smiled, agreeing. He explained that 20 years ago, he went to the dwarf tribe to learn better blacksmithing skills. Back then, they put the stones in their hammers to forge items that were dazzling and super durable. But, he said, it really harmed the body of the person using it. So, over time, he decided to make the stones better so they could be put into smaller tools. After a lot of time and searching, he finally found a great way to control the stone's power, which led to creating things just by drawing. In his mind, Xiang wondered if this was the whole point of blacksmithing and why he felt like something was missing. Raising his hand, he asked his professor where crystallized gold alloys came from. The professor replied that they came from a stone mine on the eastern border, and that's where all their stones came from. The glasses-wearing student said that mine was also home to the earth dragon. Another student said that dragons were especially risky compared to other creatures. Nervously, Xiang wondered if they could finish that dragon, and how many stones they could get. Martin explained that this was exactly why the king sent the Purple Dragon group there. They were in charge of getting and refining the stones, and then selling them to raise funds for the military. After the explanation, he picked up a stone, saying the one in his hand was worth about 10 gold coins. Everyone was shocked. One student said they had been carrying 10 gold coins all this time, not understanding anything. Xiang asked what he could bury with 1 gold coin. The boy explained that 1 gold coin could be traded for 10 silver coins, which didn't help Xiang much. So, he asked how much food he could bury with 1 gold coin and how many people he could feed with it. The boy replied that 1 gold coin was enough to bury 50 sacks of food, and 1 sack could feed an adult for a whole month. Thoughtfully, Xiang figured that if 1 gold coin was 50 sacks of food, he could feed 50 people for a month. Suddenly, the information hit him, and he was completely shocked. Nervously, the student with glasses said this meant Xiang spent what could feed 500 people for a month in just 1 night. Observing the stone, Martin explained that these crystallized stones were the lowest grade of the alloys. The average stones and higher cost over 50 gold coin. These stones were as strong as 3 low-grade stones, so their magic was 3 times as powerful. However, their only extra benefit was that they were more efficient than the low-grade ones. Plus, he added, they had an extra feature that boosted their price, but the professor admitted they didn't use that feature much. Continuing the presentation, he started talking about the high-ranking gold alloys. Everyone got excited, wondering how much a high-ranking one cost if the mid-ranking ones were already 50 gold coins. Martin explained that these were rarely found. The bluish stone was called the aquatic magic stone, currently costing 100 gold coins. coins. This price shocked all the students. The stone had the elements of water and wood, and you could use any piece of wood as a base material to make a high-quality object. It was usually used for fixing things and wooden items. The purple stone was called the purple lightning stone and had the element of electricity. This stone was used for cutting things and adjusting items, and its market value was around 300 gold coins. Lastly, the red stone was called crystallized firestone. Its elements were fire and metal, and it could change any raw material into metal. It also made metal objects stronger and currently cost around 500 gold coins. The students were amazed, asking if the professor was rich because they had never seen so much money in one place. They commented that these items were pricey and not used very often. Martin said wealthy mages often put these stones at the top of their staff. When they ran out of magic, the crystallized firestone could shoot fire, the purple lightning stone could create an electric storm, and the aquatic magic stone could summon water waves. Xiang realized that even someone without much power could use magic if they had one of these stones. Near the end of the presentation, Martin said he was finally going to talk about the gray moonstone that was in his pen. Smiling, he said this one was in the ultra-rare category, and he was the only person in the entire human tribe who had one. Everyone's jaws dropped a little. The green-haired student guessed it must be worth more than 10,000 gold coins. Xiang realized that this stone didn't need any material to forge items, and he was very interested, wondering what he could do with a stone like that, thinking he could control the entire world. Martin explained that when he was young, he studied forging with the dwarves. He said the dwarf tribe was located in a remote and hard-to-reach area, and they didn't usually talk much with other groups. However, after seeing his strong desire to learn forging, they eventually took him in as a student. While in the dwarf tribe, he earned everyone's trust and friendship. They even created a new forging method together. The dwarf tribe only had 4 gray moonstones, and thanks to his hard work, they gave him one. He concluded that he used this stone to build the walls that surrounded the kingdom. Surprised, the student with glasses said that stone must have been a truly expensive gift. Sweating, the protagonist thought that if this stone was so powerful, didn't that mean the dwarf tribe was stronger than the demon tribe? Answering, the professor said the power of the gray moonstone was endless, didn't need any material, and had no usage limit. But he added that the price of this stone was actually very high because it drained the user's consciousness. Not understanding, Xiang wondered what he meant by consciousness. Raising his hand, someone asked the professor if forging this way caused some kind of harm. The green-haired boy then commented that their professor had already gone through a lot for the kingdom's sake. Pointing to the board, he said they just needed to look at the picture. All the students were surprised because the person in the photo was a handsome man and looked nothing like the professor. But he insisted that everyone still didn't understand because that photo was indeed of their class professor. Zhang was shocked, saying that couldn't be true because the only thing the professor had in common with the man in the picture was the eyebrows. However, he ended up admitting that it was true. The man in the picture really was him. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the kingdom, Sophisis was completely alone, waiting. Then he noticed something approaching, a black and gold carriage pulled by several horses. The carriage stopped right in front of him. From inside, his father started to come out, shaking and looking like he couldn't walk. Quickly, the son rushed over to the man. Suddenly, the old man started to collapse. Holding him up, Sophisis asked his father what was wrong. In complete silence, the man said absolutely nothing. Worried, his son asked if someone had hurt him, but his father pushed him away, yelling at him to leave him alone and shouting that it was over, and now everything was truly finished. With his hair covering his eyes, he said it was over, totally defeated, and repeated that everything was over for good. The old man started to laugh, which worried his son even more. Sophisis asked again what they did to his father. Laughing, the old man responded that no one would be able to change anything. Sometime later, in a gym, Isabella was practicing her sword fighting while blindfolded. Behind her, several arrows started flying her way. Quickly, she sensed them and spun around, deflecting the 3 arrows with her sword. However, in less than a second, 3 more appeared next to her. With excellent awareness, Isabella noticed the arrows at her side as well, and with a very skilled move, she quickly and effectively destroyed all 3. Her fencing teacher watched everything, congratulating her on doing very well. Sweating, the demon queen started to take off her blindfold. In her mind, she thought she should be much stronger than this, and that she was feeling more exhausted when she moved. Dorona just watched her incredible student. Noticing a mark on her arm, she reached out her hand, advising her to remember to always practice at home because she only studied fencing half the time compared to the others, who ended up getting scared. The girl responded that she understood and would practice more. The sun was already setting, and the day was ending. The demon queen finally arrived in her room. Opening her eyes, she noticed something strange. Professors Dorona and Wadley Asi in her room. The girl asked what they were doing in her room right now, but she didn't get any response or reaction. Curious, she touched one of the teachers. Confused, she realized they were stone statues. Hidden in the corner, the protagonist asked if they looked good. She asked how he managed to add color to the stone statues, and he responded that, "You just have to paint the materials before forging." That That way, the statues would come out already colored. Crouching on the floor, he told her to wait because in the future, he would create things she couldn't even imagine. Isabella then went to the floor to pick up one of the papers. Looking at one of the hero's designs, she asked what all this was. Xiang explained that this was a project his teacher Martin gave him. These were plans he brought from the dwarf tribe. He explained that apparently the dwarves' knowledge even surpassed that of the demons, and that they had already developed a steam engine and were using it in trains. Smiling, he said he was very lucky because the teacher gave him these plans after seeing that he was interested in testing these ideas. Instantly, Isabella kicked the hero in the behind, asking if he wasn't afraid of showing off his ability or creating all these structures. In pain, the boy explained that there was no reason to be afraid because no one in this world knew he was actually forging. But the girl insisted that this was a terrible idea and started pulling on his ear, asking what that statue of her on the bed was about yesterday and questioning what he intended by putting that kind of expression on it. Crying from the pain, the boy explained that he just wanted to see if he could bring his drawings to life. Pointing to the statue of the teachers, she asked if he had already done that, so why did he make the other statues? Stuttering, the boy said he wanted to experiment with colors. Then he looked at his companion to see if the answer worked. Preparing to strike him, she called him human trash, and he stammered, asking to let him explain. Without hesitation, she started hitting the boy. The next day, Xiang was completely beaten up after being hit. While riding a bicycle around the academy, he thought he had already figured out how the steam engine worked, and that if he could change its shape, maybe he could build a car for himself. He also thought that if he kept developing it, he might even be able to create some kind of giant armored creation, like a mecha. That way, one day, that woman would fully recognize his potential. Arriving at the school, he noticed a crowd of people. Several students from his class were gathered. The green-haired student noticed Xiang. Xiang asked what was happening. Then the green-hair guy explained that their professor had gone to the mine. What happened was that last night, the professor and the green-hair guy went to the purple dragon base to bury some new stone. However, they had no idea that the prices had gone up so much. When Martin heard the price, he asked what they said. They told him that the price of all the alloy stones had tripled. The man in front of him confirmed it was true, but said it was because it was for Professor Martin. Outraged, Professor Martin said that the crystallized gold alloys were the kingdom's most important resource, and that if prices rose like this, how would blacksmiths survive? A student behind him agreed. He said that until now, they have followed Professor Martin's rules to keep prices low for people. The professor kept arguing that the previous leader of the Purple Dragon Group set the prices, but the man in front of him quickly shot back that the old leader was called a traitor. He asked if the professor wanted to end up the same way the new leader of the Purple Dragon Group sat there with his feet on the table, protected by 2 guards. Smiling, he told the professor he'd been inside the kingdom's walls too long and didn't know what was going on outside. He explained that the king's troops were fighting the eastern tribe, and they needed a lot of money to keep the conflict going. The man added that if they could raise the price of the stones, they could also charge more for their services. A student whispered that it sounded like they had no choice, but Professor Martin was absolutely furious. The green-hair guy finished the story, explaining that after the confrontation, the professor went alone to check out the mine. Nervous, Xiang asked if the mine wasn't full of dangerous monsters, and if the professor could handle it. The students replied that they had never actually seen the professor fight. The green-haired student commented that Martin was just a blacksmithing teacher, so how could he possibly defeat a dragon? Another student remembered Martin mentioning the high price of the stones, but no one thought it would go up even more. The green-haired student added that Martin was once again putting himself at risk for the kingdom. Xiang immediately said they had to stop the professor from doing something foolish. He claimed he would try to find the magic teachers for help, but the green-haired student shot down that idea, explaining that the teachers were all gone because the kingdom had a spring hunt event, and they had to report to the king for the rules. Shocked, Xiang asked if that event was happening today, and his friend confirmed it. Turning around, Xiang said his only hope was Cephesus, but his friend explained that the White Dragon Group was also away on the hunt. Frustrated, the hero complained that they couldn't do this or that, asking what they could do after all. Thinking about how kind the professor was, they couldn't let him get harmed. Suddenly, everything started shaking. All the students felt the ground move. Xiang asked if it was an earthquake. Looking over, he saw a familiar figure. Eli was walking toward them carrying a massive stone. He was a very strong student and was smiling. Nervous, the hero commented that it was Eli. He dropped the stone on the ground with a loud thud, and a cloud of dust flew up, making everyone cough. The muscular student said these were the materials for the month. The green-haired student explained that Mr. Martin wasn't there and asked if they could pay him when he returned. Eli thumped his chest, saying it wasn't a problem because the professor was trustworthy. Waving, he said he was leaving, but Xiang grabbed his arm to stop him. Holding out a bag of coins, he asked if Eli wanted to earn a little extra money. He told the green-haired student to take him to the Purple Dragon Group's base because he wanted to bury high-level crystallized gold alloy. Confused, his colleague asked why he wanted those stones. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the kingdom, 4 soldiers were sitting at a table talking. One asked if that crazy Martin really went to the mine. His colleague confirmed it, laughing and saying Martin went to collect stones on his own. Another soldier started laughing too, saying Martin was an idiot and would end up being consumed by by the dragon. But he then added that Martin was a professor, so he must have a few tricks up his sleeve. With a sneaky smile, he said that even if Martin triumphs over the dragon, he'd still have to deal with them. Suddenly, a wheel with a lot of energy around it appeared, catching the attention of one of the soldiers, who pointed it out to his friends. He asked what that thing coming toward them was. It was a complete car, made by the protagonist. All the guards were in shock, asking what kind of monster that was. When the car sped past, everyone was extremely frightened, saying there was a creature inside the walls and they needed to alert their leader. Inside the car were Xiang and his group. Ashele asked Xiang to slow down, and the boy with glasses asked if Xiang created that thing based on the steam engine plan. Explaining, Xiang said it was called a car, and he made some upgrades, making it fully electric. Surprised, the student asked if he bought those purple stones to power the thing. Xiang said yes, and complimented his colleague on being smart when he wanted to be, but Xiang said he'd need their help to rescue Professor Martin. Scared, his colleague pointed ahead and warned him to watch the road. Isabella warned him to stop looking behind and focus on driving. Excited, Xiang told everyone to hold on tight because he was going to speed up. Meanwhile, at the gold alloy mine, Professor Martin, the forge teacher, arrived. The mine guards spotted him. One asked who he was and what he was doing there. Martin responded that he was the forge professor at the Royal Academy, explaining he came to collect alloy stones to take back to the school for his students. Another guard commented that their leader already knew the rules. Only authorized people from the Purple Dragon group were allowed to enter and collect resources. He asked if Martin was really challenging them. Walking toward the mine, Martin ignored them. One of the guards just said to let him go, asking what one person could achieve in there alone. Sometime later, the professor was already deep inside the very dark mine. He thought that if he followed the digging path, he might find some stones. Some shiny objects on the ceiling caught his attention. Amazed, he commented that the mine seemed to have a good amount of minerals. Remembering that they said it would be difficult to collect these stones, the professor concluded that they said that just to justify the price increases. Suddenly, something made a noise behind him. Martin turned around. Out of nowhere, a huge creature appeared, a giant beast. Martin realized it was actually a land dragon that immediately roared in anger and charged at him. He started sweating nervously at the sight of the monster. Meanwhile, the students were in the car on their way to rescue him. The student with glasses explained that the mine entrance was just ahead. The group finally arrived at the location. Everyone got out of the car. Xiang said that since they didn't see the professor on the way, he must already be inside the mine. Isabella looked like she had a headache and thought her tolerance for this kind of situation had decreased greatly. Xiang noticed something was wrong and asked Helio if he was okay, explaining that they'd have to fight soon. The student replied that he'd be fine after resting a bit. Then Xiang called out to the demon queen, asking if she could handle the land dragon. She responded that in the demon lands, they used to eat them roasted. The boy got excited by the answer, telling everyone to find the professor quickly. Suddenly, something came from inside the cave. A huge cloud of dust hit them. With his eyes closed, the boy asked what was happening. Opening one eye, he noticed a figure in the smoke. It was Professor Martin, carrying a wheelbarrow full of precious stones, with a weapon on his arm, and covered in scratches. He asked what everyone was doing there. Concerned, one of the students asked if he was hurt. Laughing, Martin responded that he was fine, saying he could still handle small things like those. He commented that he had defeated all the earth dragons. Xiang called out to the forge teacher, amazed, asking if the weapon the professor was holding was a new invention. Sweating, Martin explained that it was a steam ejector, invented by the dwarf. The green-haired student started to tear up with emotion, saying that was wonderful. Approaching the cart, he noticed the large amount of stones and said that with them, they would be able to gather their own stones from now on without needing to bury more. However, Martin explained that they still couldn't use them like that because they needed to be refined. He mentioned there was a refinery class at the school and suggested asking them for assistance. With his arms crossed, Xiang commented that the professor was already thinking about this possibility. The hero added that he always suspected that the refinery class teacher was sneaky and secretly working with the leader of the Purple Dragon group. The professor then confirmed his suspicions. Suddenly, Isabella noticed people approaching and commented that they had company. It was the troops of the Purple Dragon group arriving at the scene. The green-haired student was terrified, saying there were so many of them. Quickly, the group was surrounded by the soldiers of the Purple Dragon. Nervously, Xiang commented that they didn't look ready to chat. A man with strange, puffy hair appeared in the middle of them, saying he had to admit Martin was brave. He asked if they hadn't been warned that this area was protected by the Purple Dragon group. Xiang asked who he was, and Martin responded that it was Yalu, the teacher of the refinery class. Yalu commented that he thought gathering resources was risky, but those earth dragons were barely a problem, and Martin managed to get all that by himself. Pointing fingers, accused them of making up lies to increase prices. He continued, saying that people in the kingdom were working themselves ragged, needing to earn the equivalent of 30,000 units of work just to have a home, and in return, they were selling low-rank stones at an outrageous price. He added that ordinary people had to work multiple jobs just to afford one. Thoughtfully, the hero realized this was very different from his own world, and that even here, burning a house seemed tough with similar ways of making wrong things. Appearing upset, Martin said he would tell the king about this, and that they no longer needed them to collect the crystallized gold alloy. Smiling, the refinery teacher said that even if Martin told the king and got permission to get the stones, how did he plan to refine them? Nervous, Martin thought he shouldn't have left the dwarf tribe so quickly and should have finished learning the refinery skills first. With his arms crossed, Xiang said it wasn't a problem if they couldn't refine them, because after this, they were heading straight to the dwarf tribe to learn how to refine. But he had a question first, asking if they were only raising prices to fund military expenses. He declared that it was because of crooked people like them that prices in the capital had shot up. Mocking them, Yalu asked why he should listen to them, since they didn't show more care for the lower class. He asked if they even knew who the people behind all this were. He confessed that he was going to let them go, but now he'd have to bury them all right there. After saying this, all his soldiers approached the group. Irritated, Martin said it was all his fault, and he didn't realize he put them all in danger by doing this. But Jiang explained that if a professor was in danger, of course they would come to assist. Even scared, the green hair guy said Xiang was right, but admitted it was his fault for bringing them all to help him. Smiling, the bald man said he was thankful to all of them. Interrupting the nice conversation, Yalu ordered all the soldiers to advance. Obeying their leader, they all rushed toward the group. Then the protagonist called out to Isabella, the demon queen, asking her if she remembered the plan. Xiang's comrade, confused due to the same name, said he did. They just needed to leave an area clear for him. At this moment, the soldiers approached the demon queen, who remained calm and composed. Grabbing her sword, she prepared for battle, landing strong blows on two of the purple dragon soldiers at the same time. Meanwhile, preparing to use his ability, an orange light started to come from his fists as he kept repeating the word focus. With a determined look, he felt ready, attacking all the soldiers with his shockwave ability. But it wasn't just the students fighting. The professor was using his steam weapon to assist as well, firing a kind of blast that hit all the soldiers around him, tossing them away with extreme ease and making them fall to the ground. The other soldiers who were still standing were scared, seeing that they were so strong, and one questioned if they were really just students. The surprised student with glasses said he had no idea the professor was this strong. In shock, he asked Xiang how he could design such armor. Xiang said he was going to test something, stating that if this worked, the forging branch would become one of the most powerful in the entire academy. He started to make a strike with the wind element from his right arm. At the same time, he managed to conjure an ability using electricity elements in his left arm, quickly combining both while the movement was out of control, creating a type of swirling attack called Thunder Impact that hit all the opponents nearby. Not far behind him, Isabella was also attacking her opponents. With only a sword, she managed to defeat them all without any difficulty. Looking back, she observed her comrade strike, prepared to attack using his right fist charged with electricity. Suddenly, he noticed something strange. His foot was stuck in some kind of weird glowing puddle, and he asked what that thing was. His foot was completely trapped in the puddle, which started to cover him like a slime. In the background, the refinery professor smiled, seeing that his ability was working. Without hesitation, Yalu started throwing several slimes toward the other boy, who quickly turned to defend himself, slamming a series of punches on these slimes to stop them from hitting him. He was completely focused on not losing. One of the slimes approached his fist, and he quickly destroyed it with one punch. However, they stuck to his whole body, stopping him from moving on his own, and more of them were covering his entire body. Realizing this, Martin called his students' attention, quickly started using the Fire Fist ability to see if he could escape, but it had no effect as the slime remained intact. Nervous, he stated that this thing was also resistant to heat. Smiling, Yalu explained that his slime was artificial, resistant to electricity and fire. Conjuring another ability, he said he would now try something different, throwing some kind of strange purple slime toward the student. However, someone managed to save him just in time. It was Professor Martin, using his armed weapon. Looking at his weapon, he realized the liquid was corrosive. Confused, he questioned Yalu why he was going so far. In response, Yalu said he already told them everyone was going to be finished here now. But suddenly, Yalu felt a hit. Isabella managed to cut his leg with her sword without the man noticing. In the background, Xiang praised her, saying it was beautiful. However, the man simply laughed despite being hit, charging toward the girl who had her back turned. Due to her great speed, she managed to turn around quickly, completely dodging the slime attack. The professor had half of his body covered with his green slime. In fact, it seemed more like he was entirely made of slime, and that's precisely what Professor Martin ended up testing. Then, someone appeared with that specific laugh. There were several Yalas laughing at the same time, and no one could tell who the real one was. One of them then asked the group to guess who the real Yalu was. Annoyed, Isabella thought that if she had the powers of that wicked person, it wouldn't be a problem. Excited, the professor said it was time to finish them all. There were several Yalas facing the group of heroes, still stuck in the slime trap. Martin was nervous, unsure what to do. Isabella was calm and completely focused on the conflict. Meanwhile, the green-haired student was totally freaking out and crying a lot, when suddenly Xiang announced he was ready. The crying student dramatically said goodbye to his mom, thinking he wouldn't be able to care for her when she was old. Suddenly, his body started shaking violently. Looking down, he saw the ground cracking, and panic spread as everyone started trembling. Martin wondered if it was an earthquake. Confused, Yalu asked what was happening. He fell onto his bottom, seeing the ground breaking up, and yelled nervously for his colleague Xiang to be careful. A massive rock flew over the boy, landing right in front of him while he screamed in terror. Looking back, Professor Martin asked what was going on. The green-haired student frantically said Xiang was stuck under the rocks. Everyone looked at the scene. Irritated, Yalu said they were all going to be finished now and launched a huge amount of slime at his opponents. Martin, Yalu, and Isabella noticed the incoming attack from the refinery professor, but the green-haired student was still on the ground, unaware he was about to be hit. At that moment, the protagonist shouted, "Steam cannon!" A strange sound came from inside one of the rocks. It was a robotic hand about to launch an attack. It fired a blast of fire that zoomed past the terrified student. The fire blast was huge and powerful, scaring the trio as well. It went straight for the refinery professor, who was clearly alarmed by the hero's attack. Deciding to protect himself, Yalu created a slime barrier. Several slimes he had launched earlier started returning to him. Looking back, he realized his corrosive slime had hit his own soldiers, taking many of them down. Nervous, the man wondered what that thing was. The fire blast seemed to pause. Martin stuttered, asking what that thing was. Looking closer, the green-haired student was terrified, staring intently at the hand sticking out of the rock. Suddenly, the hand vanished, scaring the boy again. When he looked again, he noticed two glowing green eyes. Frightened, the boy started running, yelling that it was a land dragon and everyone should run away. However, Martin explained that it wasn't a land dragon. Then, one of the rocks started to fall, and a robotic leg appeared from within. Curious, Isabella wondered what the hero had done. Seeing this, Martin also grew nervous, and the green-haired student was completely confused. Stuttering, Yalu asked if that was a demon from the demon tribe. Placing its hand on one of the rocks, the creature began to emerge, revealing itself to be a gigantic Megazord-like figure. Inside the Megazord, Xiang was controlling it as if it were a video game controller, declaring that the people of this world should start trembling now. Smiling, he announced that he was going to give them a small sample of what magic and modern technology could achieve together. Perplexed, the knights realized it was a giant, and one of them asked how they were supposed to fight it. Also scared, the refinery professor told them not to worry because he was there. At that exact moment, someone called out to Mr. Yalu, asking what happened to all his bragging from before. Relieved, the group realized it was Xiang's friend, recognizing him by his voice. Amazed, Isabella wondered if that was one of the machines from the other world. Excited, his colleague asked how he managed to make that. Impressed, Martin said the dwarves were working on giant moving creations when he was leaving their tribe, but they were nowhere near finishing. Laughing, Xiang commented that he was just trying things out and admitted he didn't really think he could pull it off either. He continued, saying that for now, they would call this one lucky. He remembered 2 minutes ago, when he had just finished his project. He had just finished drawing this giant robot he was now inside. It was time to check some parts of the internal work. Using the magical stone, he said it was time to activate the power of the crystallized firestone. Opening his eyes with total focus, he made his drawing start to become real. The drawing began to glow. Seeing his completed masterpiece, the hero said he had won at life and that this would be called lucky. At that moment, the ground started to tremble. Excited, Xiang said that now he could create incredible structures by mixing different stones from his forging process. Meanwhile, the refinery professor began gathering all his slimes, forming them into one big ball. He said that Xiang was getting too full of himself. Then, he threw this massive slime as his final attack. It hit the arm of the robot named Lucky, which seemed to react with disgust at what just happened. Furious, the professor cursed the protagonist, saying the thing was too big. With corrosive slime, he said he would try to change things now. Quickly, he threw a large ball of poisonous slime. It headed toward the giant robot. Martin warned the hero to be careful because it could even corrode iron. However, it struck the chest of the giant robot but seemed to have no effect at all. The proud hero explained that Lucky was made with crystallized firestones, not metal. Upon hearing this, the man was in shock, realizing that this thing was made of crystallized firestone. Showing off his video game skills, the hero charged forward, zooming past all the terrified soldiers. One of the robot's hands slammed toward them, hitting them with full force and launching them into the air. Not knowing what to do, Yalu explained that he would have to find others to deal with this. However, he was stopped by Isabella, who pointed her sword at him. Smirking, said that first they took minerals without permission, and now they wanted to confront a professor from the Royal Academy, declaring that this was worthy of serious punishment. Suddenly, the robot grabbed the man by the collar, holding him like a puppet. Xiang said this meant he was just as responsible as they were, stating that he almost harmed Professor Martin, then asked if they'd like to pay the king a little visit. Sweating in fear, the man started to stutter. Getting straight to the point, Xiang asked how much money the Purple Dragon Group was paying and said he would offer for the same amount they were getting. With a determined look, he asked what Yalu thought of this offer. In response, the professor said he was very bold to suggest something like that, stating that Shang had no idea how large the group he was dealing with really was. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the kingdom, Buri was laughing while holding a glass of wine, saying they should be thankful to Angus for their high positions. The man with the gold eye patch agreed. This was Torst Bush, a member of the royal family, who just laughed. The one in the overcoat was Torst Buno, who agreed with what Buri said. The man with the eye patch explained that the members of the Purple Dragon group were drawing a lot of attention from his subordinates. He told them to bring what he asked for. One of his soldiers brought a cake to the table. The cake was covered in gold, and the man told them to take a look. Annoyed, Buri asked what kind of nonsense this was. Nervous, the man said they already counted the money and would never dare to steal anything. Bush then called for his brother, asking why they didn't raise the price a bit more. The man with the eye patch chimed in, saying the prices were already quite high. However, he was corrected when the man said that this was a long-term discussion. Smiling, he said that if they kept the prices low, they would end up losing all the profit they could be making. His brother, Torst Buno, agreed, saying the man was right. Buri then ordered the man to increase the amount fivefold, saying that those pathetic people should provide the support anyway. His brothers started laughing. The man thought to himself that these guys were tougher than he imagined. Suddenly, one of the soldiers entered the hall, saying he brought news. Surprised, the man asked him to speak. The soldier reported that Professor Martin from the outer branch, along with his students, brought a large quantity of stones and gold items from the mine. Shocked and confused, the man asked if they didn't send Yalu to take care of them. The soldier responded that it seemed they managed to contain him. His brother was also surprised by this news. Later in the day, at the eastern gate, a truck arrived at the kingdom's gate. The green hair guy asked why there were so many guards, and the hero responded that it seemed their actions had drawn some attention. Holding their spears, the guards told them to stop right there. Getting off the truck, Martin said he was conducting an investigation on behalf of his leader and asked them to stop blocking the way. However, someone responded that there was no need for an investigation, which caught the bald man's attention. Another person arrived, saying their leader, S, was currently at a meeting with the king. Smiling under his eye patch, said they had the nerve to challenge him. Tied up and bound to a post, Yalu emerged from the truck, begging for help. The leader of the Purple Dragon group explained that when he first met Martin, he thought he was just politically clueless, but it seemed he was much worse than that. He then ordered them to arrest them. At that moment, someone else stepped out of the truck as well. It was Isabella, the demon queen, who warned that she wouldn't go easy on them if they dared take another step. Surprised, Angus's son commented that it seemed she was there too. Also stepping out of the truck, the protagonist realized that Buri was the prince behind the price increases. Mocking him, just smiled and turned his head to the side, saying he barely managed to attend classes lately and was already starting to miss them. But Isabella said that people like them did not have the right to speak to her directly. Irritated, the hero thought that the boy ignored him. Buri explained that if she continued with these fools, she would also end up in ruin. However, if she chose to join his side, he promised to make her rich. Irritated, the hero questioned who he thought he was calling a fool, while the green hair guy told the boy not to exaggerate. Facing the bald man, the prince said that they all violated military rules, so they should prepare to be questioned in court. Buri ordered the soldiers to take them immediately. Obeying orders, the guards told everyone to remain quiet and follow them. Suddenly, Sophisis joined the conversation, asking everyone to step aside. Upon realizing who had arrived, the protagonist started to feel happy. It was Sophisis, along with a magic and fencing professor. Additionally, the magic professor's apprentice was also with him. Tired, he informed Dorona that they had arrived, and the girl was completely clinging to his arm, sweetly saying she wanted to keep riding with him a little longer. Fed up, the man asked if they could ride after they finished things here. Still sweetly, she insisted that she wanted to ride later. Upon seeing the unconcerned Sophisis, the three felt awkward and embarrassed. When the leader of the White Dragon arrived, Buri became irritated. He declared that this was the territory of the Purple Dragon team, so there was nothing the other could do there. However, Sophisis explained that the questioning room was set up here, and Martin violated military rules, so they came to the location to take the person in custody. Irritated, the prince asked if this was some kind of joke, and said that Martin was already detained by the Purple Dragon team, so they must be there to free him. Ren, the apprentice, then stepped forward, telling Buri to stop it. Turning around, the prince realized that it was indeed the magic apprentice. Renz then explained that these were orders from the king. Outraged, the boy asked if he too was going to side with them. With his eyes closed, the apprentice told Buri that he seemed to forget something important. This kingdom belonged to the king. He questioned why he would need to explain what that meant. Trying to argue, the prince explained that they were descendants of royalty, so he asked why they must accept the demands of others. Renz explained that since he felt they were royalty, he should remember that they were also part of it, and beyond that, Renz was his uncle. Renz then revealed his right eye, which was usually covered by hair, and had some kind of strange energy. It was an extremely powerful aura, so strong that it caused the prince to fall to his knees. The hero also felt something, experiencing some kind of pain in his heart. Isabella then said that it was because he didn't have the strength to handle it, so the sudden release of power was very difficult to deal with. In shock, the boy thought that this Renz was truly truly powerful. The prince's siblings then asked him to stop, as their brother was under a lot of pressure, and they began to apologize. Renz then told Buri not to act like he was at a funeral just because some people were taking his side. He told the boy to get his mind straight, and said that he respected him because he was his brother. However, he did not hold him in the same regard, as he was nothing but the lowest rank of the royal family. Terrified and stuttering, the boy begged his uncle for kindness. In response, the man stopped his attack. This was also a relief for the protagonist, who had been suffering from a lot of pain. Shaking with anger, Buri said he would remember this. Suddenly, someone started pulling his ear. It was the fencing professor, saying it had been a while since he showed up for classes and asking where he had been. At that moment, the boy started to apologize and promised not to skip anymore. In response, the professor slapped him across the face, and his siblings started to watch everything. One of them said to help him, however. The other said that he should go since she was scared. Isabella and Professor Martin stood face to face with Sophisis, who had just helped them. Nervously, the bald man gently asked Sophisis to arrest him. Sophisis told him to stop being foolish. Then Sophisis explained that the king didn't want to allow him to be detained, and the professor tried to understand what had just happened. Sophisis said he was happy that Martin managed to return safe and sound. Scratching his head, the hero apologized to Sophisis for putting him in this situation again. However, Sophisis simply put his hand on Xiang's head in response. Watching the scene, Isabella seemed to be getting jealous. In a very kind way, the leader of the White Dragon said that Xiang didn't need to do something so risky again, explaining that he didn't want to see him face danger. The boy stuttered but said he was going to do it anyway. At that moment, someone caught Isabella's attention. Her magic instructor told her that the king had prepared a big party, so all the classes would need to choose their best students to attend, and she had already chosen Isabella and Rennes to go. After the invitation, she asked what the girl thought. Curious, Isabella asked what kind of party it was. With her arms crossed, Dorona told the magic instructor that she already had Ren, and that they needed Isabella to represent the fencing class. However, the magic instructor insisted that Isabella would represent her class. The two argued in the background. Renz asked the Demon Queen for her decision, asking if she would go with him to represent the magic class. With her eyes closed, the woman said she still didn't understand this situation. Watching the two, the protagonist also started to get jealous. Sophisis then asked Xiang to go with him, saying they needed to explain the situation to the king. The hero agreed, and in the background, they could see the refinery professor still inside the truck, wondering when he would be released. A little while later, they arrived at the palace in front of the king and began explaining the whole situation. After hearing everything, the king said he understood, but added that Buri, who was currently leading the Purple Dragon group, had been too bold in making such a big decision, because first he would need to get advice from Angus. Confused, the protagonist wondered what the king was doing. Sophisis explained to the king that the Purple Dragon group had raised the prices of materials throughout the city, and that this would put them far out of reach for the citizens, so he questioned if they would allow this to continue. Nervously, the king said Angus told him that they were almost out of military funds, so they'd have to leave it that way for now. Stepping into the conversation, Xiang asked for permission from the king, and said that he knew those funds were meant for military purposes and for the greater good. However, he questioned whether they were actually being diverted to corrupt individuals. In the background, a man shouted that corrupt people were what he despised the most in this land. Sweating nervously, Xiang slowly turned around. The one who shouted was the human regent, Torst Angus. In shock, Xiang thought he should have kept his mouth shut. Then the king asked his honorable uncle what brought him there. Angus approached the king, explaining that he heard there was trouble at the eastern border, so he came to check things out himself. He said he found out that the second in command of the Purple Dragon group raised the price of the gold stones to steal some of the military money, but he assured the king the problem was already fixed. The leader of the Purple Dragon group, who had the eye patch, looked furious, and Angus loudly declared he absolutely hated thieves. Xiang was still pretty shocked by everything that just happened. Sophisis tried to say something to the man, but decided against it. Martin then tried to ask about the future price of the crystallized gold alloy. Angus cut him off, turning to him and saying that Martin was one of the most valuable people they had, and his students were just as important. With a quick glance, he looked at Xiang, who was startled and thought this guy was probably the type who would try to eliminate him later for the comment he made earlier. Angus told the king he had an idea. Always eager to listen, the king kindly asked for his advice. Angus suggested they move the job of getting the crystallized gold alloy to the White Dragon group and the 4 classes. This suggestion completely shocked everyone in Xiang's group, including Xiang. Nervous, Martin asked if he was serious about that. Angus argued that he knew the stones needed refining, which is why he had already talked everything over with Mr. Yalu. Not understanding, the king asked about the military expenses. Angus stated that the White Dragon group would take care of those. Xiang awkwardly wondered when this guy became so generous, thinking he might just be trying to impress Sophisis. The king quickly agreed, saying to go ahead with Angus's suggestion suggestion. Changing the subject, the king said he wanted Martin to do something for him. He explained that Angus was sending an expedition to the west, which would delay the annual hunting festival until summer. So, he wanted the bald man to build an arena in 10 days. Surprised, Xiang didn't know they had something like the Olympics in this world too. Sometime later, they started to leave the palace, with everyone, including Angus, walking down the stairs. The leader of the White Dragon group called out to Angus, thanking him. Sophisis said Angus helped them today, but he still didn't understand why. Responding to Sophisis, Angus said he was the most important general he had and was a hero who had taken care of demons on the front lines when he was just 15. He said Sophisis had won many important battles, was adopted by the Gurodita, and was now protecting the king and running formal events. He asked if Sophisis didn't think there wasn't enough action for his sword. Sophisis replied that he served the king and would do whatever he was told. He explained he joined the White Dragon because his father wanted him to protect the king. However, he also figured that his troops were stuck within the White Dragon group, and if the nation's future was in the king's hands, the king needed protection. Smiling, Angus said that command of a nation should be in the hands of the most capable, and the king was still very young. He said he would like to take control of everything, but that wouldn't be best for the nation right now. With a threatening look, Sophisis agreed the king was young, but said he believed that instead of abusing the power they were given, the king should be running the kingdom. After hearing this, Angus was surprised, and a kind of dark energy started coming from his body. Everyone nearby was completely terrified. With a fierce look, he asked if the Gurodita hadn't told Sophisis anything about the situation since he returned. Ripping the handle of his sword, Sophisis said that was exactly what he wanted to know, and asked what Angus did with his father. Xiang was surprised, realizing the two were about to fight, sensing a faint blue energy coming from Sophisis. Nervous, Professor Martin asked Xiang to stand behind him, worried he might get hurt if they started fighting. However, someone called out to Sophisis, warning that something very serious had happened. Not understanding anything, Sophisis asked what was wrong. His shocked guards informed him that his father, the Gurodita, was found hanging in the library at his home. This news completely stunned Sophisis, and the members of his group were speechless. Smiling, Angus said that the Gurodita really managed to disappoint this time. Sometime later, it was already night. Isabella was calmly polishing her sword, sitting on her bed. Meanwhile, the hero was quiet, looking at the boy on the floor. She asked what was wrong with him. He replied that she wouldn't understand even if he told her, but the girl told him not to think silly things, and that he and she were just classmates. After responding, both fell silent. In his mind, Xiang said he was feeling down because of what happened with Sophisis, but he was happy she cared about his feelings so much. Standing up, he asked if she had decided which class she would represent. She said she had decided to represent the fencing class. Xiang asked if the kingdom hadn't invited her to go with them, and he told her to relax, saying he wasn't mad about that. With her eyes closed, she stated that she only considered Haynes to be strong and wanted to face him to test her skills and limit. However, the hero said that Haynes was the handsome guy from the royal family, confident, and asked her if she also found the guy attractive. But before he could finish the sentence, he noticed she was giving off a demonic energy with red eyes full of rage. She asked if he had forgotten who she was, declaring that he was nothing but a dirty human who should be punished every day from now on. Falling to the floor and terrified, he stuttered, begging for mercy, but she didn't accept his plea. The next day, at the cemetery, they were at Gurodita's tomb. Sophisis was dressed in white, while the other guests were in black for mourning. With a blank stare, he just looked at his father's grave. Martin said that General Gurodita was the king's teacher and that Sophisis should also do his best for the kingdom. He continued, saying he wouldn't mind so much if the one in charge was the general or even the king. Sophisis said that the other generals were under Angus's control and that in their positions, they shouldn't speak badly of anyone. Breaking the silence, the hero told Sophisis that if he wanted revenge, Isabella agreed with him. Dorona hit both of them on the head, suggesting they forget that idea. She affirmed that Angus was the most powerful fighter in the kingdom, and that when he was young, Angus fought against the demon king, Odrosa, who was the only human strong enough to be king. Whispering, the boy asked Isabella if she was talking about her father. She responded, saying her father told her about it, and that Angus was the only human who managed to survive against him. Suddenly, Sophisis revealed that the Gurodita wasn't his biological father, but he was the one who gave him a second chance at life. He explained that the walls of Yaz hadn't been built 20 years ago, and his family lived in a small village in the south. They weren't rich, but his father always worked hard to feed him and his younger brother. However, something terrible happened that night. His village was attacked by bandits. His father defended the village with other people, but was ultimately taken out by a bandit. To defend his father, Sophisis went against the man who took out him, managing to bite his ear off. His bite was so strong it completely tore it off. However, the man managed to push him away, hitting him with the same sword that had injured his father earlier. After this, the injured boy was thrown to the ground. The bandits then announced they would eliminate anyone who resisted and imprison the rest. Seeing this horrifying horrifying scene, the boy's eyes began to close. Sometime later, he woke up in the pouring rain, seeing his father lying on the ground, lifeless. His village was completely destroyed, and he found the bodies of his parents but not his brother. After asking around, he found out his brother had been sold as a slave to the demon tribe. From that day on, he began learning how to use a sword to find his brother. As soon as he turned 15, he asked to join the military forces. A soldier with a scar on his eye asked if the boy was old enough. Without hesitation, he claimed he was. Since then, he gained experience during the long conflict against the Cloud Monarch. However, he was nearly finished over and over again. But one day, a man who became his father came to the squad. Inside the tent, Gurodita saw several people lying on the ground. At that time, Sophisis had already been promoted to infantry soldier. One of the men lying on the ground begged for help, pleading with him to end his suffering right there. He was completely injured and had no arms. Gurodita asked why they hadn't moved this man to a safe place and where the local doctors were. The soldier replied that the doctors were traveling with another squad who were eliminated by the other tribe on the way here. However, the old man saw something that completely shocked him. Sophisis ended the life of his comrade who had been asking for it. Sophisis explained that he wouldn't survive until another group of doctors arrived. He said the comrade was going to pass away anyway if he kept suffering, so he just wanted to make things easy. Recognizing the boy, Gurodita said he was the young hero who defeated an enemy commander, but Sophisis corrected him, saying he wasn't a hero, but if he wanted a title, the executioner of the kingdom would be more fitting. The guard then questioned how Sophisis could speak like that to this person, but Gurodita interrupted, asking why he joined the army if he hated fighting so much. Being completely honest, Sophisis said it was because his brother was sold to the demon tribe, so he joined the army to defeat that tribe and rescue him. However, after coming to the battlefield, he learned that no matter how much harm they inflicted, they would always lose more. His comrade then asked if they would allow the passing of their comrades to be in vain, questioning if his family was still with the enemies and if he needed to continue giving his all. With his head down, Sophisis explained that the name of that soldier was Roach, and he was his subordinate who helped him gather information simply because he admired him. In the end, Roach was only 17, and just like him, there were many other young people in the same situation. If the higher-ups intended to use the people who died to pave the way to reunite with his brother, Sophisis said he would like to give up on all of it. Walking away, he said he was tired and was going to rest. Irritated, his superior asked if he really wanted to break military rules and leave. Stepping into the discussion, the old man asked if they could recover his family in another way. Would Sophisis be willing to stay? In the end, this made Sophisis completely change his mind. Finishing the explanation, he said that on that day, his father took him far from the front lines and made him join the White Dragon group to continue his mission. He concluded that his father's perfect world was one where all the tribes could live in peace and complete harmony, and naturally, Sophisis also started following this idea. Isabella commented that creating peace was even harder than starting a conflict with the tribes. She explained that the demon tribe knew this very well, so a ceasefire between the tribes could give both sides time to think about what to do next. Dorona then asked what the plan was now. Sophisis replied that they could only do their best. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the kingdom, someone was inside a building that looked like a chapel. Sitting on top of a stuffed tiger was Angus, who appeared irritated, facing a mysterious person. After explaining the whole story, he said that's how it ended. The veiled figure sensed a presence in the background. Someone was coming to see Angus. The man said the person could leave now. The person obeyed and left. Heading toward him, someone was carrying a bag full of things. It was a girl with short purple hair, calling him father. Smiling, the man asked if she brought what he asked for. In response, his daughter threw the sacks on the ground. They weren't treasures, but severed heads. Looking at the disturbing sight, the man simply said the name Gurodita, saying that Gurodita refused to be helpful to him, so he had no choice but to silence him. He said he had already set things up for her to join the archery class at the Royal Academy, and that she would meet her new teacher there tomorrow. However, the girl didn't quite understand what her father meant. Angus then threw something from his hand. It was some kind of card, and with great skill, his daughter caught it. The man explained that he wanted her to join this class and represent it in the kingdom's sports festival. After that, she was to find out what the intentions were of the boy in the photo, who happened to be the protagonist. The next day, at the old royal arena, several people were gathered in front of this arena, which looked like the Roman Colosseum. Xiang ordered that since Professor Martin had a gray moonstone, building an arena should be very easy, but he questioned how they would take down the old one. Martin said that's why he brought Mr. Mike Yasso and Miss Icy to help him. Mike greeted Xiang, saying it had been a while. The hero greeted him, and the short professor mentioned he had heard a lot about his forging skills. Icy told Mike that he could start now. Stretching, the man said he was ready. He was already inside the arena, which was in ruins. Sighing, he began to focus. Then, he prepared to make a huge jump. Using immense strength in his leg, he jumped so high that you could see the man from outside the arena. In the air, He began to summon some kind of ability in his right fist. After gathering a certain amount of energy, he prepared for the attack, using an ancient art ability called Infinite Destruction, which looked very much like a tornado. The strike hit the center of the arena, spreading to all four corners. It was a very powerful, long-range attack. Someone commented that they needed to find cover so they wouldn't get hurt. Icy then began to do her part, using the Eternal Light Barrier ability. A huge, very bright light began to come from her staff. Suddenly, a type of light started to surround the arena, growing larger and larger, forming a dome that protected the entire group from any debris. You could see that Mike quickly destroyed the entire arena without much effort, and the group was able to watch everything from a front row seat without worrying about their physical well-being. Amazed, Xiang thought that this must be the most efficient demolition team in the world. After finishing his job, Mike jumped out of the dome with great force, landing dramatically for everyone to see. However, the work wasn't completely finished. The magic instructor began restricting the area, making the dome smaller, but only in width, squeezing all the debris from the old arena. A while later, all the debris was piled up, and Mike commented that his back hurt. Smiling, Professor Martin thanked both of them. Excited, Icy told the professor to do his best. They both left, and the group said their goodbyes. The hero commented that there were only 10 days left until the competition, asking if he was going to train. However, the boy explained that the professor told him that just working here counted as training for the competition. Xiang then asked how tired he was, mentioning that he heard the students spent a lot of time collecting materials for the forge class. Placing a hand on his shoulder, the professor explained that the boy was a great kid. He had several younger siblings waiting for him at home, so he tried to earn as much money as possible while studying at the academy because afterward, he sent the money back home to help with family expenses. After hearing this, the hero said that besides being a good student, he was also a good brother. The boy said he had to be, as he was the oldest. He commented that if he won the tournament, his family's life would improve a lot, so he really needed to win this time. This comment made the protagonist curious, wondering if there was actually that much money involved. Then, his glasses-wearing colleague interrupted, confirming that yes, there was. He explained that the winner of the competition took home 1,000 gold coins and a pure gold trophy. He added that this amount could only bury a few high-rank alloy stones, but besides that, the winner also received an honorary military title, allowing them to join the military forces after graduation and become wealthy. Completely new to this world, the hero asked about the military title, and if someone who had it could come and go from the kingdom as they wished. His colleagues said of course they could, but going around alone could be very risky. In his mind, Xiang started to get more interested, thinking that this way he would be able to take Isabella to the demon tribe because she had been away from home for too long. He figured that if she didn't return by the end of her vacation, she would be in trouble, but if he managed to help her return, it would be good. Sometime later, everyone was helping with the construction of the new arena. Then, someone called for Professor Martin. 3 people who looked like young adults and academy students arrived. Smiling, the professor said he was very happy they came to lend a hand. The man in the middle said they were his students, so of course they had to come to help. The glasses-wearing boy, Moto, was also surprised, saying he couldn't believe the veterans were there. One of the veterans walked up to the protagonist, asking if he was Xiang. He said he heard the boy could build giant robots and steam engines, and the blonde man asked where he learned such amazing thing. Embarrassed and laughing, the boy said it was nothing special and that his brain just got a bit ahead of him, but he said they seemed even more impressive because from what he heard, they were well-known forgers throughout the kingdom. With his arms crossed, Martin said he asked them to come and help improve their forging skills while he was busy. He concluded by telling Xiang and his friend that he wanted the two of them to spend these 10 days doing special training, which left both of them quite confused. Touching his shoulder, Martin called for the protagonist, reminding the boy that he once said something about forgers fighting alongside soldiers in conflict. Martin confessed he didn't like the idea of fighting, but the dwarves were going to teach him a very important lesson. A battle could be started with great strength, but it could also be ended. He concluded by saying he hoped that one day the boy would understand what he just said. Martin introduced his 3 veterans to his current students, saying that these were the best he had ever taught. For these 10 days, they would take over the class and help the students master forging techniques. This was veteran Haynes, who some might already know as he was currently the best architect in the city. The purple-haired one was named Mohan, the best weapons specialist. And last but not least, this was Kaiser, the formidable clothing designer. Concluding the introduction, Martin said they would help them specialize over the next 10 days. Haynes said that in recent tournaments, the forge class had always had irrelevant results, but this year he hoped to break that bad luck once and for all. The bald man explained that the classes would send students to compete in the tournament, so while they didn't expect to win, they hoped to at least break the curse by getting good results. He asked everyone to do their best. Meanwhile, Eli was carrying giant rocks, thinking she needed to start working harder as well. This was the training field for the magic class. Several stone statues simulating monsters were in the middle of the arena. The magic apprentice, Renz, was training. With his right arm, he began to summon some kind of blue magic very similar to a sword or spear. This attack resembled spikes piercing the ground, heading toward one of the stone statues. Being a very powerful attack, it started to demolish it. With his left hand free, he began to summon another type of magic, this time using an electricity element. With a literal snap of his fingers, a strong lightning bolt struck the stone monster, completely burning it. After that, the apprentice used a control ability, making a kind of earth lasso rise from the ground, and he clenched his fist. This earth lasso, which was wrapped around another stone monster, shattered it into several different pieces. With his left hand, he began to summon a fire spell, acting like a mage. The fire headed toward another stone monster, also wrapping around it as if it were a flexible cloth. Suddenly, this small amount of fire turned into a powerful tornado, resulting in the complete destruction of his opponent. Watching the training, a pink-haired girl commented that Ren was really powerful. Her teacher said he wasn't at her level yet, but this tournament was already theirs. Nervous, the girl asked if Ren's was that good, why didn't they let him enter the tournament alone? With her arms crossed, the teacher said no, explaining that she didn't want to give second place to her rival, Dorona, from the fencing class. Sometime later, in a mountainous area, the fencing professor watched her student at the waterfall. Isabella was meditating while the waterfall fell on her head. In her mind, the professor thought that Isabella's sword techniques were already excellent. However, she still needed to fully bring out the strength and power within herself. Isabella was fully focused, reaching a deep part of her mind. Suddenly, she opened both her eyes, seeing several beings around her. She questioned what this could be. Looking to the side, she was startled by the number of people close to her. Then she realized what was happening. They were all her generals. Irritated, she asked who was responsible for all of this. A purple hand then approached her face. This was the Demon Queen version of herself, warning her that the girl shouldn't fear her because they were both the Demon Queen. At that moment, Isabella realized this was her other version. Smiling, the demonic version commented that the person behind this tragedy was her, pointing to the queen. Nervous, Isabella asked if she was responsible for all of this. Her other version confirmed that yes, they suffered and had to be sacrificed because she was never strong and was always naive. Perplexed, Isabella started to stress that all of this was her fault. Manipulating her, her other version said that she trusted humans because she was weak and trusted Lillian because she was naive. With a very frightening expression, she said this was the result of her decisions. Quickly, Isabella slapped her hand away, affirming that this was not true. A bit hesitant, she said it wasn't her fault, saying that she didn't want to see anyone else perish in this conflict and that it wasn't her intention to sacrifice her own people. Arguing with herself, her other version said that their father's plan, the plan to take over all the lands, was actually fantastic. However, she managed to ruin everything the Oz tribe had already done. And even after all that, her innocent and loyal followers still put themselves at risk to protect a queen like her. Staring intently at human Isabella, she asked if the girl had already forgotten who she really was. From the ground, someone grabbed her ankle. All of her former generals called out for Her Majesty. These ghosts began to gather one by one. Seeing all of this, Isabella started to become extremely irritated. Screaming, she said she didn't need her other version to remind her of that and began to release black and red energy. Meanwhile, the professor was leaning against the wall, just waiting. Opening her eyes, she noticed something strange. A large amount of water from the waterfall was thrown outward. Sweating, the woman thought they were in trouble now. Still under the waterfall, Isabella was releasing a strong energy. Then, this energy began to create a kind of electromagnetic field. Surprised, Dorona said that this was a powerful burst of inner strength. The girl didn't seem to be perfectly sane, apparently. Her energy was getting stronger and stronger. Then, the professor decided to jump toward her, landing a direct blow to her neck. Instantly, the student fainted. While holding her, the teacher thought that was close. She almost got consumed by her own hidden power. She noted that this energy felt very strange, remembering that she had seen a similar power before, and the hostile intent made her heart race. Meanwhile, in a place that looked a lot like a laboratory, several connected flasks were visible. In the background, Yalu was observing a type of blue slime when suddenly someone called his name. It was Torst Bush from the royal family, asking why the man called him here. In his mind, Yalu thought that this idiot didn't even call him professor. With a fake smile on his face, he said that he had created a new potion, and that this could even be capable of overcoming Ren's. Surprised, the boy asked if he was serious. The professor responded that he was, but there was a condition. Meanwhile, in another part of the kingdom, Sophisis commented that he hadn't seen Shang for a while, and wondered how he was doing with the forge. He was walking down the street accompanied by another boy, while the girls nearby commented on how attractive he was. The White Dragon leader mentioned that Martin had high hopes for Shang, stating that Martin told him that Shang would surpass him. His colleague next to him agreed, saying that when he saw the drawing on the paper, he realized how talented Shang was. The man also mentioned that Isabella was working hard too, and that's why he came to encourage them even more. Suspicious, the purple-haired boy asked if it was the woman who set all this up, and that he also heard she had been working hard lately. Suddenly, something caught their attention. A man was cooling himself with a kind of portable fan. Curious, Sophisis asked what kind of thing he was selling. The man replied that it was called a fan and was very useful. All you needed to do was pull this string and cool air started blowing. Then the vendor showed how it worked. Trying it out, the boy was impressed and told his leader that this thing was neat. A bit skeptical, the leader started observing his surroundings, stating that many strange things had been popping up on the streets lately. Surprised, the boy asked what these things were, and the leader responded that he had never seen them either. The two continued walking through the streets until they noticed a long line. The vendor announced that bicycles were for sale for just 2 gold coins. At that moment, a man arrived, saying he would bury 10 bicycles, one for each person in his family, and everyone around noticed how rich he was. Seeing the crowd, the boy commented that people seemed quite busy here. Breaking a broom, someone wondered why they were still bothering with learning magic. Running to the line, they said bicycles were better than this junk and that they wanted one too. A vendor announced a bulk sale telling people to bury their Doronus and Wadley here. Outraged, Sophisis wondered who was bold enough to be selling miniature professors from the academy. His colleague noticed that the crowd there was even bigger than the line they were in. Pricing the items, the vendor explained that 2 gold coins were for 1 and 3 gold coins for 2. Showing the miniatures, he said that the more they bought, the cheaper they got. Nervous, the boys realized that these were actual dolls of the professor. A man who seemed a bit tipsy asked how much the vendor wanted for the ones in the back, but the vendor explained that his boss said those were the only life-size ones he made, and he was asking for 2,000 gold coins for each, leaving everyone shocked at how expensive they were, yet still wanting one. Approaching the crowd, Sophisis asked for permission and inquired if the boss's name was Xiang by any chance. Happy to see him, the man welcomed the general and said that he was correct. His boss's name was indeed Xiang. Sophisis then realized that this was also the work of that boy. The man then explained that the whole street was filled with inventions from Master Yi, and the boy next to him said that he truly was incredible. Suddenly, they started hearing some kind of horn. It was the same blue truck that was used last time. Surprised, the boy asked if that was a monster, and Sophisis explained that it was Xiang's steam vehicle. Inside the truck, Moto commented that the streets had been quite crowded lately. Looking out the window, he noticed it was the leader of the White Dragon group. Opening the door, he called for the leader, who smiled back at the boy. Sometime later in the new arena, they were talking with Professor Martin. He explained that the arena was almost finished. Seeing the work, Sophisis commented that it was truly a job worthy of a talented forger like him. The bald man then thanked him for the compliment. Smiling, he mentioned that he came to look for Xiang, but unfortunately, he had left with him for the southern Fanwood Forest. Curious, Sophisis asked why they went to the empty Fanwood Forest. The bald man responded that they didn't tell him. Moto explained that before they left, they asked him to give this chest full of coins to Sophisis. Opening the chest, the boy was surprised because Xiang made quite a profit. Confirming, the bald man said yes, and that this was a donation from Xiang to the military fund. Looking at this immense amount of money, Sophisis commented that this was the hard-earned money of the citizens. Smiling, the bald man explained that it wasn't, and that's where Sophisis was wrong. He revealed that now they could mine on their own. They replaced human labor with mechanized power, and had also been getting assistance from the combat class. Mike was explaining to his class to use every second in the field as training. Concluding the explanation, the professor said that the cost of strong practices was going down everywhere. Interrupting the conversation, Moto explained that the alloy goldstone in his hand used to cost 10 gold coins. Moreover, Mr. Yalu used to refine it for 5 gold coins, but now it was down to 2 coins. Then the boy said that 5 gold coins to refine 1 stone was outrageous. Approaching the boy, the student explained that from what he heard, Angus asked to adjust the prices after the price issue. After hearing this, Sophisis said that the cost of living had also decreased, which had lifted a burden from the citizens. Martin added that the cost of living had gone down, and all this money was earned honestly through Xiang's inventions. Smiling, the leader was happy to hear that. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Eli announced they had arrived. Xiang was surprised, commenting that this was the famous Fanwood, a place full of giant trees. As they walked through the forest, the hero decided to touch one of the trees, noticing that its texture was unlike ordinary wood. Squatting down, he started taking off his backpack. He said they needed to test this wood now and see if it was as magical as people claimed. Taking out a smaller bag from his backpack, which held several scrolls, he grabbed the chainsaw scroll. He opened it on the ground. The scroll already had the object drawn on it. Xiang said to begin the transfer. Magically, a considerably large stone appeared and floated in the air. The hero approached the chainsaw drawing and touched it with his magic stone and brush. Suddenly, the stone started trembling, and a chainsaw began to appear from within it. The protagonist picked it up, stating that now he just needed to add an electric stone. He commented that using scrolls to summon pre-sculpted stones for forging saved a lot of time. With the chainsaw ready, he handed it to Eli, saying it was her turn. She prepared to start cutting, tried to cut the tree but struggled, her body trembling. Said the wood was incredibly tough, so tough that it broke the chainsaw. A piece of it flew toward the protagonist, who managed to dodge it. The hero commented that even the chainsaw wasn't enough to cut this tree. Eli added that it didn't even leave a scratch, and they would have to give up on cutting it. Looking closely, Xiang said this was actually really good. Confused, Eli said he still didn't get it, and asked what he was trying to do with this thing. Explaining Meaning, the hero said that people thought this wood was useless because they couldn't use it as raw material to build houses or as firewood. However, that only happened because they were using the wood the wrong way. Confident, he said that if used correctly, this wood could become a very valuable resource. The next day, trumpets began to sound at the new arena, signaling that the competition was about to start. Sophisis and his guards were in the middle of the arena to begin the presentation. From one of the sections, other people arrived as well. It was the young king along with his cavalry. At that moment, Sophisis bowed to the king, and everyone in the audience did the same. It was mentioned that nothing was decided yet, because the combat class almost won last year. The representatives of the magic class arrived, including the professor, the apprentice Renz, the pink-haired girl, and two twins. Stealing from the scene, a man with green hair appeared with a giant cat, and the pink-haired girl didn't like it at all. Renz were supposed to be the strongest representatives in this round. In the audience, several girls started flirting with Renz. Entering through another tunnel were the representatives of the fencing class. They even had a royal competitor, which was Buri. The others wondered who the girl behind Dorona was, and didn't expect to see someone so beautiful in this round. Quickly, the two teachers started giving each other tough looks. Next came the representatives of the shepherd class and the druid class. Inside another tunnel, someone was trembling a lot. It was Moto, but the protagonist approached the boy, telling him to relax. Smiling, Shang said they should just do what they knew how to do, encouraging them to go for it. Looking back, something caught his attention. He questioned why there was only one representative in that class. Excited, the culinary class student said she was going to win this year and was carrying the class's dreams and hopes on her shoulders. One of his classmates explained that this was the culinary class representative, Nai, and asked if that professor wasn't too old. Then they thought he must be the first one. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the culinary class, which only had one member. Another student from a different class even commented on what a chef could do in this competition, suggesting it would be a baguette. This irritated the bald student, but the professor told him to relax and control his fire, the same way he controlled it when cooking. His student then obeyed, but others continued mocking and laughing, saying his voice sounded like a little girl's and that he was all muscular but went by the name Nai. Hearing all these insults, the man started shaking with anger. Shang commented that even the culinary class was striving to win the tournament, so they had to show everyone who was in charge. At this moment, another class started arriving, the representatives of the forge class. When they arrived, everyone started booing. Without fear, the protagonist asked what happened. Hearing the boos, everyone in the class started to feel downcast and demotivated. Nervous, Moto explained that despite always participating in these tournaments, his class always ended up in last place. Hearing this, Shang stated that all they needed to do was show their potential, asking his professor if that was right. The professor, very nervous, stammered that it was. After everyone introduced themselves, Sophisis said he would like to welcome all the participants this year. He explained that the best student among them would have the opportunity to join the military forces without taking any aptitude test. Moreover, the winning class would receive the royal cup handed out by the king in person, so they expected all the students to do their best to showcase their techniques and skills. He continued, saying that the royal tournament would last 5 days and would be divided into 2 categories. One of the categories was the nation's crossroad, which would last an entire day. Suddenly, a glowing emblem began to appear on the ground. Several emblems appeared in every corner of the arena. Sophisis explained that this long race would take place within the kingdom's walls and would pass through 4 locations. The starting point would be at Melodic Lake. Then they would pass through the Forest of the Fallen. Next, they would reach the Wind Valley, go through the Red Sands River, and finish at the peak of the kingdom. Haynes commented that they chose the harshest locations for this round, and his colleague wondered if this wasn't too difficult. Sophisis explained that there would be a portal after each area, and by passing through the portals, they would earn points based on their positions. But also hidden in each location were the kingdom's crests. Holding one in his hands, he explained that each crest could be exchanged for 10 points. However, out of all the participants who passed through every location, only 16 would be able to proceed in the tournament. He said that the locations they needed to pass through would be challenging, so they must go through them as quickly as possible, prioritizing their own safety. Suddenly, a magical screen appeared in front of each student. Not knowing what to do, Shang asked how to sign up for this thing. The magic apprentice then signed, followed by Isabella and the other people present. Terrified, Moto said that these were the most challenging places in the kingdom and that it was better to give up while they still could. However, the hero took his colleague's hand and placed it on the magic screen to sign successfully, with 100% success. Looking to the side, his colleague realized what just happened. In shock, he asked what the hero did. Smiling, the protagonist told him that there was no turning back now. A large and imposing portal began to emerge from the ground. Asi told them to head over there. With her arms crossed, she told her apprentice that the tournament was all his. Quickly, everyone started entering the portal. One of the royal men reminded them of what the old man said, stating that it all counted as training. At that moment, Dorona caught Isabella's attention, telling her to learn to control her hidden power. With her eyes closed, Isabella said she understood. Then she began observing another group. Shang was dragging his colleague by the backpack, who insisted he didn't want to go, crying. He clung to his professor, saying that if he passed on, the professor should take care of his mother. The hero started trying to pull his colleague by the feet, but it was very difficult, finally managing to carry him, while the boy reminded him not to forget about his mother. Behind the bald man, the refinery professor called out, advising Martin to get ready as he started making preparations. Hearing this, Martin wondered what he was talking about. Smiling, the man told him to prepare some very nice boxes, referring to coffins. Then the hero began to pass through the portal. Opening his eyes, Zhang looked at the place they were in, wondering if this was the melodic lake. It was a gigantic lake. Nervously, he commented that this was very strange and asked if this was more of a sea than a lake. Someone joined the conversation, asking if he knew why the lake was called melodic. It was the pink-haired girl, Aisha, who explained that if you shouted at the lake's edge, your voice would echo for much longer than usual. That's why it got its name. Eli was surprised by this information and said he was going to try it. Shouting his own name, it echoed across the lake further and further away, as if there were no limit. Hearing the endless echo, the boy was amazed. Laughing, he said it seemed like a bunch of people were shouting his name, which felt pretty good. A member of the magic class called out to Ren, asking how he was planning to cross the lake. Being ignored, the boy said there was no need to be so cold. At that moment, Ren's called Isabella, asking if she'd like to cross the lake with him. Being very honest, she said no and turned away, ignoring him. She approached the hero, holding his arm, saying she would think about how to cross with her husband. Seeing this, everyone fell silent. She whispered, asking if he had already thought of something. Laughing, the boy said of course he had, and added that some people could be really annoying when they flirted with someone else's wife. Hearing this indirect comment, the apprentice got very irritated. Completely ignoring the couple, Xiang said it was great that she was using this to keep the flirts away. However, she blushed awkwardly upon hearing this. Confused, the boy wondered what was going on with her and asked why she had been acting so strangely lately. The apprentice, Renz, was using some type of magic on his feet, making himself float along the platform. He easily crossed the lake. Seeing this, Eli started stretching. Telling her siblings he was going ahead, he quickly pushed off, jumping straight into the water without any fear. His strategy was to swim to the other side. Seeing this, Torst Buno thought they were a bunch of idiots. Dorona also approached the lake, jumping in with all her might. Her strategy also seemed to be swimming to the other side. With his arms crossed, Buri laughed and commented to his brother that their class seemed to be full of brainless, strong people. He then asked his brother, Bush, to show what he was capable of. Bush immediately agreed. Raising his arms, he began casting some kind of magic. He managed to create a type of shield or dome in the shape of a bubble, which would likely be used to cross safely without getting wet. Two groups were facing each other. The boy and the blonde asked if they still remembered their agreement, and the girl replied that she did. At that moment, the blonde took out a blue potion and threw it directly into the lake. The potion began to freeze the water, forming a kind of platform. Someone called the attention of the groups, asking if they could take Macarona with them as well. The man responded that they were already full. Making a pleading face, she begged, explaining that there was still plenty of space and that they could even help organize things. At that moment, all the boys started to blush. Being straightforward, the girl said that they had already said no, and she suggested they try to find a way to cross the lake instead of wasting time trying to charm these guys. Stammering, the boy agreed that they'd have to cross on their own, but he thought to himself that his mind went blank and he almost agreed with the girl. Annoyed, the girl said it was all that red-haired girl from the archery class's fault. Then she looked at her brother and said that it seemed now they'd have to rely on him. In response, the man said that it was no problem at all. Stretching out his arm, he started to cast something. Then he summoned a very beautiful staff. With this staff, he began performing some kind of magic, invoking an ancient beast in the sky. A large magical symbol began to appear. Impressed, the protagonist said that this magic was very beautiful, but Isabella corrected him, saying it wasn't magic but an invocation technique. From within the circle, an owl's head emerged. This was the hawkeyed beast. Happy, the man said that it seemed he was truly blessed by the gods, and his brother laughed, saying they got exactly what they needed, a flying beast. Then the whole class climbed onto the beast and flew off to cross the lake. Meanwhile, on the broomstick, a girl asked her sister if they should hurry up, and her sister responded that they didn't know what kind of trap awaited them, so it was better to let everyone go ahead first. Seeing all of this, the green-haired guy from the magic class prepared to try something as well. The weird guy, on the cat, told him to go, calling him General. However, the cat was talkative and responded that he wouldn't go into that filthy water. Annoyed, the weird guy asked if they couldn't swim, how were they going to reach the finish line? The cat told him to figure it out because he was the leader, but he wasn't going into the water and also said that he never once claimed he knew how to swim. Frustrated, the young man wondered if he was really going to be eliminated in the first round. The hero was building something while the pink-haired girl watched. Approaching, she asked how they were going to cross the lake. With scrolls in hand, the hero replied that they didn't know magic or how to summon mystical creatures. creatures, so they'd have to rely on their tools. He asked everyone to step back a little. Using his scroll, he summoned a massive stone. Impressed, the girl commented that he was using a valuable scroll to transfer a boulder. Thinking to himself, the boy wondered what kind of boat he was going to make. Behind him, Moto called his attention, asking why he didn't make the Mark I, referring to something specific. Smiling, the hero said that's what he'd do. Touching the stone with his magic brush, it started to glow in a surprisingly bright and strong way. The pink-haired girl just watched as the object was being created. The stone showed immense power. A short time later, the boat was completely ready. The girl commented that it was a strange boat, and the hero just laughed. However, she said there was something she didn't understand, asking why he didn't just transfer one that was already built instead of using raw material. The boy explained that there's a principle in sacred forging. When forging something, the drawing doesn't need to be detailed, just a simple sketch of what you want. The quality of the forged items would depend on the forger's skill and their familiarity with those items. From these sketches on the stones, he could transfer and create any type of boat he wanted. After the explanation, the girl seemed to understand. Placing her hand on the hero's head, she asked how many types of boats he had stored. Embarrassed and nervous, he started to laugh. He explained that they tried a bunch of things because of the competition. Moto walked to the hero, calling his attention, asking why he was explaining these techniques to her since she was his opponent. Not making much of it, Xiang told him to relax, saying it wasn't important. Nervously, the boy said he understood that Xiang didn't want to be rude to his opponents, but he should at least consider how Isabella felt. After hearing this, the protagonist looked to the side, seeing the murderous look the girl was giving him. Embarrassed, he turned his head, avoiding eye contact. In his mind, Xiang wondered if she was really mad about this. Continuing the conversation, the pink-haired girl said that his name, Xiang, was quite unique. Extending her hand, she introduced herself, saying her name was Aisha, and that it was a pleasure to meet him. Almost exploding with embarrassment, the boy laughed and said it was a pleasure to meet her too. Aisha commented that she noticed his boat had plenty of space and asked if he wouldn't mind giving her and her classmates a ride. The cat guy then appeared, kindly asking if he could let them on, saying that the Forge class was actually the best. Moto intervened in the conversation, saying no, they were opponents. Seeing his classmate, the hero thought that at this rate, he was going to pass away without ever finding love. He asked the girl if she didn't have those magic brooms. Embarrassed, the man explained that she was actually trying to help him since he couldn't fly or swim. Heading toward the cat, Xiang started pulling on its whiskers. Irritated, the cat asked what he was doing and insulted him. Surprised that the cat could talk, Xiang just laughed and apologized. Breaking the silence, Aisha said that if they agreed to give them a ride to the other side of the river, she promised to return the favor to everyone. Automatically, all the boys in the class started blushing, and the protagonist questioned what they were thinking about. With her arms crossed, Isabella said that if they were going to do this together, she didn't mind at all. Raising an eyebrow, the hero questioned this attitude, asking if she really wanted to do it. Embarrassed, the girl explained that she was referring to something else and clarified that she wasn't against the idea of crossing the lake with her opponents. Xiang responded that if that was the case, they should go now. A falcon in the sky was observing everyone. Its eye looked like some kind of advanced camera, displaying everything the competitors were doing simultaneously, with holograms, so everyone in the arena could watch. Haynes wondered why they hadn't left yet, and Kaiser, his classmate, questioned what they were talking about so much. Thoughtful, the bald guy wondered what Yalu meant with that earlier warning, affirming that this didn't smell right at all. Meanwhile, the dude in archery classes are frustrated by their slow pace. Suddenly, Xiang's boat zooms past them at incredible speed. Xiang waves and says he'll see them at the finish line, leaving the other classes completely shocked by his vehicle. The crowd is amazed, having never seen a boat like that before. The king is also impressed and asks Sophisas about his connection to Xiang. Sophisas proudly calls Xiang a good friend. The king notes that Xiang is a smart craftsman with a bright future, which makes Sophisas very happy. Back on the lake, Renz is speeding across when he senses something wrong. The combat class realizes Eli is missing. Suddenly, tentacles burst from the water and smashed Renz's boat, forcing him to swim. Eli dives underwater to find his missing friend, who is trapped. He manages to free him but notices two glowing eyes in the deep. He ignores the threat to get his friend to safety. Just then, a massive monster rises out of the water, revealing the true danger of the lake. Bori and his brother finally arrive at the scene, realizing they are facing the guardian of the Lake of Sound, the Void King. Bush suggests they ignore it and just try to leave, while the postal class arrives and decides to use the chaos to sneak past the first round. However, the monster attacks everyone at once. Eli manages to deflect the attack, and Renz protects himself with a barrier. Eli tells Wei to stay back while he handles it. The monster strikes at Eli, but Eli destroys the attack with a single punch and goes on the offensive. The monster retaliates with a sound-based attack, which disorients everyone. Eli realizes he can't fight at full power while submerged in water. Meanwhile, the twin sisters from the magic class combine their powers to shock the monster. It works. but the electricity travels through the water and accidentally zaps the combat class members too. Renz then steps up, creating a massive whirlpool that traps the monster and launches it high into the air. He coldly tells the creature not to block his path. The shockwaves from his move buffet the other students, but Ren ignores them and heads for the exit. The audience is stunned that Ren has defeated the Void King with a single spell. The king asks Sophisis if Renz might one day rival Regent in power. Sophisis honestly admits that while Renz has immense raw talent, Regent has actual battle experience. Dorona watches nervously, hoping her students are okay. Back in the water, the combat class is struggling. Wei is completely drained, and his team doesn't know what to do. Eli encourages them to keep going, but just then, Xiang arrives in his boat and picks them all up. Eli is impressed by Xiang's invention. Xiang calls it a speedboat and shows it off. Suddenly, it starts raining. Eli looks up and realizes the monster is falling back down. It crashes into the water and re-emerges, but this time it has turned Zhang and looks much angrier. Aisha panics, explaining that this is the monster's second form. Eli blames Renz for making him mad and running away. Aisha prepares to fight, but Xiang tells her to relax. He signals the forging class, and they press a few buttons. The boat's structure shifts, sealing up and transforming into a submarine equipped with a turret. Eli is shocked by the sudden upgrade. The enraged monster attacks, but Xiang fires back with his modified steam gun. The shots cancel out the monster's attack and land direct hits. The impact shakes the boat, terrifying the cat, but Moto explains that Xiang's tech is top tier. Isabella realizes Xiang wasn't just sleeping, he was building this weapon. The monster, unable to handle the barrage, suddenly starts crying and shouting for them to stop. Xiang is confused as the monster shrinks down and transforms into a human child. Xiang asks if the terrifying beast was really just this kid. The boy sobs that his master told him to guard the place, not to get beaten up by students. Isabella can't believe the boss monster is just a child. Xiang takes the opportunity to demand a kingdom token before he does anything worse. The terrified kid hands over a token, and Xiang's group moves on. As the kid complains about being bullied and blackmailed, he spots another target, 9 from the chef class. The kid turns back into a monster to stop him, declaring none shall pass. However, 9 pulls out his kitchen tools and looks at the monster like a giant ingredient, musing that he could make high-class sushi out of it. The monster mocks 9's voice, which makes 9 furious. The scene cuts away as 9 prepares to cook. Renz reaches the portal for the second round and finds 2 tokens, taking them both. The twin sisters arrive next and find 1 token. They realize the first arrival gets 2, and subsequent arrivals get 1. Xiang's group arrives shortly after. Xiang tells his teammates, Moto and the others, to take the tokens they earned. Moto refuses, saying just passing the first round is enough for them. Xiang insists and gives them the tokens anyway. He then offers one to Isabella, but she refuses, determined to collect her own tokens to maintain her dignity as a queen. A student from the magic class asks if he can have the spare token if Isabella doesn't want it. Aisha scolds him, saying they shouldn't take advantage of the people who just helped them cross the lake. Even the cat agrees with her. Eli assures them they will catch up soon, and they all enter the portal. Isabella steps out of the portal and finds herself facing a massive forest fire. Eli is confused about why the jungle is burning. Deep in the forest, we see Bori and his brother setting the fires. Buno confirms they found 3 more tokens, bringing their total to 6. He asks if they really need to keep doing this. Bori explains that he promised Yalu he would eliminate Xiang. The fire isn't meant to finish them off directly, it's meant to provoke the guardian of the forest into attacking them. Xiang's group moves through the burning forest, encountering fleeing animals. The cat notes that starting a fire during the competition is suspicious. Aisha agrees, realizing a student must have done this. Xiang asks if she thinks it was Renz, but Aisha defends him, saying he wouldn't stoop that low. Suddenly, a magical attack barely misses Xiang. Aisha recognizes the magic style. It belongs to the twin sisters. They look over and see one of the twin sisters fighting a tree-like monster. The creature is holding the other sister captive, furious at the humans for destroying the forest's balance. The monster attacks the free sister, and she struggles to defend herself. Just as the monster launches another strike, ice magic flies in and blocks the attack. The sister looks relieved to see her rescuers. Xiang looks at the army of tree monsters, which look a lot like Groots, and comments on how terrible humans can be for disturbing them. He says they will never be forgiven, but before he can even finish his sentence, Eli jumps in and attacks one of the monsters. Isabella joins the fray and slices another one down, but the monster immediately begins to heal itself and returns to normal. One of the twin sisters explains that fighting them is useless because they have powerful regeneration abilities. That's why she and her sisters couldn't defeat them earlier. Eli suggests using his fire fist to burn them down, but Isabella immediately stops him. She points out that the forest is extremely dry, and using fire would only make the wildfire worse. Plus, her sister is still being held hostage by them. Xiang tries a diplomatic approach, telling telling the tree monsters that they have no intention of harming them and just want to pass through the forest. The monster snaps back, accusing them of starting the fire and refusing to accept any apologies. It declares that none of them will leave alive, and the group attacks. Xiang realizes talking won't work, so they prepare to fight. Elsewhere in the forest, Ren is also attacked by the tree monsters, but he easily traps them. He wonders why there is such a massive fire in the jungle. The monster tells him that humans started it. Ren quickly deduces that since no one else should be ahead of him, the fire must be a deliberate trap set by someone to trigger the monster's aggression. He decides it's not worth wasting his energy fighting here, so he leaves the monsters and moves on. Back with Xiang's group, they manage to defeat the smaller monsters and rescue the captured twin sister. Eli is relieved that things are settling down, noting that those enemies weren't easy to stop. Zhang apologizes to the defeated monsters, reiterating that they just wanted to pass through. Suddenly, Isabella calls out to someone hiding nearby. The students from the postal class sheepishly step out. They claim they just arrived and are confused about the situation. They explain that their summoned bird disappeared, and they lost the rest of their team after a fight. Eli looks at one of the postal students and is shocked to learn he is a boy, joking that he's never seen a guy that hot before. The forging class bursts into laughter at the comment. Suddenly, Eli senses a strong boundary force heading their way. Everyone gets into a combat stance. Out of nowhere, massive tentacles attack them. Aisha quickly throws up a magic barrier to protect the group, but the force of the impact shatters it. Eli checks if everyone is okay while Xiang wonders who is attacking them. Aisha notes the power of the attack, excited that they are finally facing an opponent on their level. More tentacles emerge, revealing a massive snake-like monster, the guardian of the forest, the queen of thorns, an S-rank beast. She is furious, accusing the filthy humans of ruining her home. Isabella realizes that whoever started the fire did so specifically to provoke the queen into attacking them. The boy from the magic class tries to reason with the queen, explaining they are just travelers and didn't cause the trouble. The queen ignores him and looks at the student riding the cat, mocking him for being a weak human riding a beast. The cat rider clarifies he is more of a servant, but the queen decides to end them all and attacks. The group dodges her strikes. Isabella counters with a sword attack, but the queen blocks it. Aisha fires off her ice magic, but the queen destroys that too. The magic class boy tries to land a hit, but one of the tree monsters jumps in front of the queen to take the damage. The tree begs the queen to be careful. Seeing her servant hurt makes the queen incredibly angry. She grabs the giant cat by the leg. The boy on the cat panics as his mount gets trapped. Eli tries to attack the queen to free them, but the queen uses the cat as a weapon, throwing it directly at Eli, knocking them both back. Aisha casts a magical circle above the queen, raining down ice shards. The queen creates her own barrier to block the barrage. Isabella sees an opening and charges in, using her boundary force on her sword. However, the queen spots her coming and launches a surprise tentacle attack. Xiang shouts for Isabella to dodge, but she isn't fast enough and takes a direct hit. And with that, this video ends. Like and subscribe for the next part.